Welcome to Liberty Audiobook. This is Control Your Reactions Become Unrecognizable. In a world that constantly demands your attention, where every notification buzzes for a response, every comment triggers a debate, and every challenge invites a fight, there exists a profound and often overlooked source of power. It is not found in dominance or in the loudest voice, or in the quickest retort. True strength, the kind that reshapes destiny, is often found in the quiet refusal to react. It is the silent, internal resolve to pause when everything within you screams to explode, to defend, or to prove something. Think of it this way. The truth is strikingly simple. The individual who controls their reactions ultimately controls the direction of their own life. They are the captain of their ship and navigating through storms with intention. Conversely, the person who does not possess this mastery is a vessel adrift, carried by the whims of impulses, the tides of fleeting emotions, and the winds of other people's expectations. Their journey is dictated not by their will, but by the currents of external circumstances. Your reactions are not merely fleeting moments, they are foundational acts of creation. They build the very architecture of your identity, chiseling away at the person you are and shaping the person you are becoming. They forge your reputation, a silent testament to your character, and they influence the opportunities that flow towards you or, just as powerfully, away from you. Every single day presents a crucible, a series of tests designed to reveal your deepest inclinations. It might be a rude comment from a stranger, a stinging disagreement with a loved one, a subtle moment of disrespect in a professional setting, an unexpected financial setback that threatens your stability, or a situation that cunningly pokes at your most deeply held insecurities. These moments, these seemingly small, everyday provocations, are not insignificant. They are the decisive battlegrounds where your future self is forged. Most people mistakenly believe that life changes through grand victories, through monumental achievements that announce themselves with fanfare. But the profound truth is that life often changes through these quiet, almost imperceptible moments. It changes when you choose discipline over impulse, when you opt for patience over aggression, when you embrace silence over the clamor of chaos, and when you elevate strategy above the demands of a wounded ego. In this audiobook, we embark on an exploration of what we call the power of response. This is not about the automatic, knee-jerk reaction that springs forth unbidden. No, this is about the deliberate, chosen response, a powerful act of agency that demonstrably increases your influence, garners genuine respect, and consistently improves your life's outcomes. Over the next several hours, you will learn how to remain composed and calm amidst conflict. You will discover the art of resisting provocation, how to effectively starve drama of its destructive energy, and how to master the regulation of your own emotions. We will delve into strategies to stop perpetually seeking external validation, and crucially, how to cultivate a presence where your results speak volumes, louder than any explanation you could offer. In essence, you will learn how to become unrecognizable to the old version of yourself. This is not hyperbole, it is a promise. If you diligently apply the principles woven throughout these chapters, people will not just notice a slight improvement in your demeanor or your effectiveness. They will genuinely be unable to recognize the former version of you, the reactive, easily swayed, perpetually stressed individual. This profound transformation, this journey to personal sovereignty, begins with a single, potent decision, a commitment that you will no longer throw away your inherent power for the fleeting, short-term satisfaction of an impulsive reaction. Through the coming chapters, we will practice together the art of controlling your reactions. We will cultivate a life that is dictated by conscious choice, rather than being enslaved by the capricious nature of emotion. more control you hold over your inner world, the more genuine respect you will earn, not just from others, but perhaps more importantly, from yourself. This journey is one of liberation, of stepping into a more deliberate, more powerful existence. Let us begin. Chapter 1. Stop letting others control your buttons. Imagine your emotional state as a sophisticated control panel equipped with various buttons: patience, anger, insecurity, pride, peace, frustration. There are people, situations, and environments in the world that are constantly, almost instinctively, trying to reach for those buttons. They poke, they prod, they provoke, and they test you. Sometimes their intentions are malicious. They do it intentionally, seeking to manipulate or diminish you. Other times they do it accidentally, perhaps out of their own unawareness, their own stress, or their own reactive patterns. But regardless of their intent, the result is often the same. If you react automatically, they gain control. It might not be control over your entire life, not a grand puppetry of your existence, but it is undeniably control over the moment. Control over your emotions, control over the direction and quality of your day. And that, in the grand scheme of things, is not a small matter. If someone can dictate your reactions today, if they can steer your emotional state with a careless word or an inconsiderate action, they can, by extension, influence your decisions tomorrow. They subtly erode your autonomy, one reactive moment at a time. Think for a moment about how often your mood, your productivity, your entire afternoon or evening is hijacked by someone else's comment, their tone, their attitude, or their frustrating behavior. A simple, dismissive sentence spoken by a colleague can ruin someone's entire afternoon, plunging them into unproductive rumination. A single, sharp criticism, perhaps not even truly warranted, can cause a person to abandon a goal they were genuinely excited about pursuing. A small, seemingly insignificant disagreement with a loved one can spiral into an overreaction, causing ripples that damage that relationship for months, sometimes even years. Or because someone touched a button that was not adequately protected, was not intentionally guarded. The fundamental goal of this chapter is to equip you with the strategies and mindset to protect your buttons, and in doing so, to reclaim sovereign control over your reactions. To achieve this, you need to become acutely aware of two distinct kinds of control. First, there is the control others try to exert over you, the external provocations, the attempts to manipulate. Second, and even more crucial, is the control you allow them to have over you. Many people, tragically, remain completely unaware of this second form of control, yet it matters infinitely more. You cannot, with any realistic expectation, stop the world from trying to influence you. You cannot conjure a life that is gentle, perfectly predictable, or consistently fair. Life, by its very nature, is dynamic, unpredictable, and often challenging. But what you can do, what lies entirely within your sphere of influence, is to train yourself not to hand out access to your precious emotional system. That, my friends, is where real unshakable strength truly begins. There is a concept from ancient philosophy, especially Stoicism, worth remembering here. We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them. This resonates deeply with the idea that provocation only works on the untrained. Someone can deliberately provoke you, disrespect you, or underestimate you. They can try to push your buttons with expert precision. But you retain the ultimate choice, whether to respond impulsively, allowing their energy to dictate yours, or to respond strategically, intentionally, from a place of inner calm. You choose whether to react with the volatile demands of ego or with the clear-sighted purpose of intention, you choose whether to concede power to them or to keep it firmly within yourself. That choice, that profound moment of agency, is always there, even if it falls obscured or unreachable in the heat of the moment. And the more you practice recognizing and exercising that choice, the easier, more natural, and more empowering it becomes. One of the greatest traps people fall into is the habit of overreacting to things that simply do not deserve their precious energy. Not everything needs a reply. Not every slight requires a confrontation. Not every battle that presents itself is worth fighting. The real, piercing question you must learn to ask yourself, with unwavering honesty, is this: does reacting in this way truly serve me? Does it genuinely help me? Does it move me closer to my goals, my values, and the person I aspire to be? If the honest answer is no, then that reaction, no matter how cathartic it might feel in the moment, is not an act of power. It is, in fact, an act of weakness, often disguised as strength, a fleeting burst of ego that drains your reserves. Impulse always feels strong and urgent in the moment, a rush of self-righteousness. But it rarely, if ever, produces strong, sustainable, or desirable results. When you cease letting others control your buttons, something profoundly interesting begins to happen. People, almost subconsciously, start adjusting their approach to you. They stop resorting to the same old tricks that used to trigger you. They lose their ability to manipulate your emotions, to pull you into their drama. They come to the quiet, undeniable realization that you are no longer easy to trigger, no longer a predictable emotional target. And that realization, that shift in your demeanor, creates a powerful change in how you are treated. People inherently respect those whom they cannot easily influence, those who think before they react, those who can absorb an attack without crumbling, and those who can endure an insult without losing their composure or dignity. This cultivated restraint does not mean you become passive or a doormat. On the contrary, it means you become highly selective. You choose to respond instead of react. You choose your battles with strategic precision, instead of mindlessly fighting every single one that appears on your horizon. You learn to ask yourself that simple but profoundly powerful question: is this truly worth my energy? And most of the time, as you grow in this mastery, the answer will be a liberating no. That no is not a surrender. It is growth. It is maturity. It is the undeniable beginning of becoming unrecognizable to the old, reactive version of yourself. This entire process, this journey to self-mastery, begins with awareness, awareness of your triggers, awareness of your default reactions, awareness of the stories you tell yourself. That awareness then becomes consistent practice. You consciously choose the pause, the deliberate response, over and over again. That practice, that repetition, eventually becomes ingrained strength. And that strength, over time, transforms into an integral part of your identity. That is the true path to taking back your buttons. That is how you stop letting others direct the course of your day, your week, your life. That is how you gracefully transition from a state of emotional dependency to one of powerful, self-directed emotional leadership. Chapter 2. Feel the emotion. Do not obey it. Every reaction, every impulse, every snap decision begins with a feeling. Something happens in your external world, a word, an event, situation. Your body registers it almost instantly, and a spark of emotion ignites within you. Perhaps it is a surge of irritation, a pang of insecurity, a jolt of fear, a rush of excitement, a simmer of jealousy, or even a swell of pride. The feeling appears with startling speed, a primal response, and for most people, the deeply ingrained assumption is that once that feeling shows up, the reaction must inevitably follow. Emotion dictates, and reaction obeys. That is the default sequence, a seemingly unbreakable chain. Feeling leads directly to action, but let us challenge this assumption. That sequence is not a law of nature, immutable, absolute. It is, in fact, merely a habit, a deeply ingrained habit, perhaps one you picked up long before you possessed the self-awareness to realize it was subtly, yet profoundly, shaping the entire trajectory of your life. One of the most powerful, most liberating skills you will ever cultivate, a skill that truly separates the masters of self from the slaves of impulse, is the ability to fool without obeying. It is the capacity to experience the raw, potent energy of an emotion, but to steadfastly refuse to be driven by its immediate demands. It means watching the emotion rise within you, acknowledging its presence, pausing for a crucial beat, and then asking yourself, with genuine curiosity, what is this feeling trying to get me to do right now? That single, solitary moment of questioning, that internal interrogation, is the invisible line that separates the impulsive person from the intentional person. It is the fundamental difference between merely reacting to life's dictates and actively directing your own life's course. Most people do not struggle because they feel too much. Our emotional range is a gift. They struggle because they obey too quickly, too automatically, too blindly. They feel offended, so they retaliate with sharp words. They feel anxious, so they avoid the very challenges that could lead to growth. They feel jealous, so they fall into the insidious trap of comparison and resentment. They feel insecure, so they hide their true potential. They feel challenged, so they immediately escalate the situation into conflict. The emotion fires first, a primal alarm, and the reaction follows without a moment of review, without a second thought. This unchecked sequence is precisely how people create unnecessary conflict, how they damage invaluable opportunities, and how they consistently sabotage their own progress, not because life is inherently cruel, but because they have never learned to interrupt the automatic, unthinking obedience between emotion and action. So, here is a principle, a cornerstone of timeless wisdom, worth ingraining deeply into your consciousness. Emotions are signals, not commands. Signals offer crucial information. They tell you something significant is happening inside you, a shift, a response to your environment. But critically, they do not, by their very nature, decide what you must do next. Anger might be telling you truthfully that a boundary was crossed. Fear might be signaling that something unfamiliar and potentially challenging lies ahead. Jealousy might be revealing what you truly value and desire. Sincerity might be telling you that your identity, your sense of self, needs further development and strengthening. Emotions are messengers. Do not shoot the messenger by suppressing them. But equally, do not worship the messenger by blindly obeying their every instruction. Listen to them, learn from their message, understand their origin, and then consciously choose your response. This is the very crucible where emotional maturity is forged. Emotional maturity is not the sterile absence of emotion, a cold, unfeeling state, far from it. It is the mastery of obedience, the control over which feelings you allow to drive your actions. You can be profoundly angry and still choose not to explode in destructive rage. You can be deeply afraid and still find the courage to move forward. You can feel the sting of jealousy without attacking or undermining someone else. You can feel disrespected and still choose to respond with unwavering dignity and composure. That, my friends, is real power. The historical figures and contemporary leaders you admire, those who have left an indelible mark on the world, in leadership, in business, in life are often not the ones who never felt emotion. They are, almost universally, ones who did not let emotions sit in the driver's seat. They felt deeply, intensely, but their strength lay in their ability to direct that energy, not be consumed by it. There is a pervasive myth that strong people are unfeeling, stoic, in a detached, almost robotic sense. This is a profound misunderstanding. Strong people feel deeply. Strong people feel intensely. But their strength is manifested in their refusal to let the first feeling, the immediate, raw impulse, become their final decision. If you obey every emotion that appears on your internal radar, you are not truly in control. Your impulses are. And impulses, by their very nature, do not think about long-term consequences. Impulses do not factor in reputation, integrity, or growth. They simply demand immediate relief, relief from discomfort, relief from uncertainty, relief from vulnerability. And relief, while momentarily satisfying, is rarely aligned with genuine, sustainable progress. To master this essential skill of feeling without obeying, you do not need to eradicate or suppress emotion. What you need to cultivate is a small but infinitely powerful distance from it. A tiny space between what you feel and what you do, a space often measured in mere seconds, sometimes even in just a single deep, conscious breath. That sacred space, however fleeting, is precisely where your life changes. That space is where you make the conscious decision, not to blindly obey. And that space, more than any other, is the birthplace of true wisdom. Every wise person you know, every individual renowned for their sagacity and composure, has learned how to pause long enough to allow the initial surge of emotion to cool, to dissipate its most volatile energy, and to allow the clear light of logic, of intentional thought, to rise and illuminate the path forward. Not because logic is always inherently superior, but because logic considers consequences, values, and the broader context, while raw emotion considers only immediacy and survival. Here is the beautiful compounding benefit of this practice. The more you practice feeling without obeying, the more confident you become in your ability to handle life's inevitable challenges. You develop an internal fortitude, and with that confidence comes a profound sense of calm. With that calm comes a quiet, undeniable influence. And with that influence comes genuine respect from others and, crucially, from yourself. People trust those who can maintain composure. People follow those who do not crumble or fold at the first sign of discomfort. People look up to those who do not overreact to every spark of emotion, every passing slight. That trust, that steadfastness, becomes an invaluable asset, a quiet advantage, a powerful form of leadership, both over your own internal world and in the discerning eyes of others. None of this counsel means suppressing emotion. Suppression is a dangerous strategy. It leads to internal pressure building, often resulting in explosive, uncontrolled outbursts later. Suppression is the deceptive act of pretending you do not feel anything while your internal world burns with unaddressed turmoil. That is not control. That is nihil, a ticking emotional time bomb. Control, true control, means acknowledging the feeling, giving it its due, and then choosing your response deliberately, consciously. You can candidly say, "I feel angry," without acting in anger. You can say, "I feel afraid," without obeying fear's command to retreat. You can say, "I feel disrespected," without seeking immediate, often destructive, revenge. And when you do that consistently, over and over again, you build what we call emotional discipline. And emotional discipline is the fundamental bedrock, the unshakable foundation of becoming truly unrecognizable to who you used to be. The old version of you, the reactive self, quickly responded to every stimulus. The new version, the sovereign self, reacts deliberately, strategically. The old version chased immediate relief, an escape from discomfort. The new version chooses long-term results, a pathway to mastery. And the bridge, the transformative connection between those two versions, is the simple, yet immensely powerful skill of feeling the emotion but refusing to obey it blindly. That, my friends, is how self-control truly begins. That is how identity evolves. That is how you start to live life on your terms, not under the capricious orders of whatever emotion happens to show up in the moment. Chapter 3. Build the pause before you respond. Single most powerful moment in any potential reaction is not the reaction itself. It is the tiny, almost imperceptible pause that precedes it. That pause is a sacred space, a quantum moment where the trajectory of your life, in that specific situation, is truly decided. It is the crossroads where you either repeat your old ingrained patterns of reactivity or, with conscious intention, forge powerful new ones. For most people, this pause is an unknown continent. It simply does not exist in their perception. Everything feels instantaneous. The direct current from stimulus to response. Someone disrespects you, and you immediately fire back. Someone disagrees with you, and your automatic defense mechanisms kick in. Someone challenges you, and you instinctively escalate the conflict. But if you intentionally slow down this process, even for just a couple of precious seconds, you will inevitably notice it. There is always a discernible space between the external stimulus and your internal response. That space, that sliver of time, is precisely where control lives. The pause is not about being passive, about inaction or weakness, quite the opposite. It is about buying invaluable time for the intelligent, rational and wise part of you to emerge, to gather its faculties, and to lead, before the impulsive, emotional, and often short-sighted part takes over. Emotion is fast. Ego is fast, demanding immediate gratification or defense. Impulse is fast, a primal surge. But wisdom, true wisdom, needs a moment to breathe, to assess, to consider. And that moment, that invaluable pause, is almost always within your reach if you choose to seize it. What you are cultivating here is not how to feel less or to become numb to the world. It is how to deliberately interrupt your automatic, habitual reaction long enough to choose a better, more aligned one. That, fundamentally, is what the pause grants you: choice. Even one single second of pause can profoundly alter the outcome of a situation. 1 second to take a steadying breath. 1 second to quickly review the facts. 1 second to ask yourself, with genuine introspection, what am I actually about to do, and why? That may sound infinitesimally small, a blink and you miss it interval. But most people never even get that second. They go straight from external trigger to internal reaction, straight from raw emotion to unfiltered expression, straight from discomfort to immediate, often regretted, relief. And those swift, unexamined reactions are precisely the reason why they remain stuck in cycles of unnecessary conflict, endless explanations, and pervasive regret. When you deliberately build the pause into your behavioral repertoire, you effectively slow down the impulsive surge long enough to consciously consider the potential consequences. You begin to ask better, more strategic questions. Does this specific reaction truly serve my highest good? Is this fleeting moment worth the energy it will consume? Who truly benefits if I respond in this particular way? How will I feel about this entire interaction tomorrow, or next week, or next year? These questions, vital as they are, do not ignore your emotion. They skillfully regulate it. They do not kill your pride. They protect it from foolish, self-sabotaging moves. They do not make you weak. They prevent you from bleeding your precious strength in the wrong direction, on unworthy causes. If you observe genuinely powerful people, those individuals who exert a profound, quiet influence, you will notice a consistent pattern. They rarely react instantly. They listen deeply and intently. They observe with keen discernment. They process information, taking their time to connect the dots. They take their time to formulate a response. Sometimes they even choose to remain completely silent, allowing the moment to unfold further. And because of that measured approach, their words, when they finally choose to speak them, carry immense weight, authority, and impact. Their silence is not a sign of confusion or weakness. It is a calculated period of preparation. Their pause is not hesitation. It is a deliberate act of control, a display of inner discipline. This is precisely why composure, particularly under pressure, is often mistakenly perceived as superiority. People assume that if you are not reacting emotionally, you either do not care about the situation or you are completely unaffected by it. But the deeper truth is, you care enough to respond wisely, strategically, and with long-term vision, instead of impulsively. Now, understand this. The pause is a muscle. It is not something you are inherently born with, fully developed, and ready for use. It is something you must consciously build, strengthen, and refine. And you do not have to achieve perfection from the very beginning. Like any muscle, it gains strength through consistent, deliberate repetition. You begin by practicing in small, low-stakes moments first, when someone rudely cuts you off in traffic, when a friend says something irritating or thoughtless, when you receive a piece of criticism at work that stings, when a stranger behaves rudely without provocation, when your ego feels subtly poked or challenged. These small, everyday moments become your training sessions, your personal dojo for emotional mastery. And as you engage in this practice, you will begin to notice something truly interesting. When you consciously choose not to react, the world does not suddenly end. There is no catastrophic explosion, no immediate collapse of your reality. In fact, you often feel a profound sense of inner strength, a quiet victory for not taking the bait, for not allowing yourself to be pulled into unnecessary drama. There is a powerful saying worth remembering: if you can control the first 5 seconds, you can control the outcome. This is not merely a catchy phrase, it is a strategic truth. Most battles, whether personal or professional, are not ultimately won in the heated argument itself. They are won in the very beginning of that argument, by who establishes emotional control. Most conflicts are not determined by logic alone. They are determined by reaction speed. The faster the reaction, the less intelligence, less strategy, and less wisdom are involved. Conversely, the slower, more deliberate the reaction, the more control you gain over yourself and the unfolding situation. The pause also serves as an invaluable shield, protecting you from uttering words you do not truly mean, words that are regrettable in hindsight. Words spoken in the heat of a reactive moment are often words that become permanent wounds, scarring relationships irreparably. Relationships are damaged not by thoughtful disagreement, but by unfiltered, uncontrolled emotion. Careers are sometimes ruined, not by a single failure, but by reactive, impulsive behavior displayed under pressure. Opportunities are lost, not by incompetence, but by a distinct lack of composure at critical moments. The pause, therefore, prevents you from carelessly turning temporary feelings into permanent, often destructive outcomes. Some individuals instinctively fear the pause, equating speed with strength. They believe that a rapid response demonstrates decisiveness and power. But true strength is not about speed. It is fundamentally about direction. A fast reaction moving in the wrong direction creates irreparable damage and regret. A slower, more considered reaction, moving in the right direction, creates a lasting advantage. And advantage, when carefully cultivated, is infinitely more valuable than a momentary, fleeting emotional satisfaction. As you master the art of the pause, you will also notice a subtle but profound transformation in your daily life. Life becomes noticeably less chaotic. You stop feeling like everything around you demands your immediate, urgent attention. You cease feeling compelled to defend yourself at every perceived slight or challenge. You stop feeling perpetually controlled by what others say or do around you. The pause becomes your personal filter, your discerning gatekeeper. It empowers you to consciously decide what truly deserves a thoughtful response and what simply does not warrant your precious energy. It allows you to strategically choose your battles instead of being indiscriminately dragged into every skirmish, and eventually, this practice becomes an intrinsic part of your very identity. The old version of you reacted first and thought much later, if at all. The new version of you thinks first, with clear intention, and reacts only when absolutely necessary, when it strategically serves your highest purpose. That transformation, that profound internal shift, does not occur overnight, but it happens much faster than you might anticipate when you commit to practicing it intentionally. The pause is small in its manifestation, but it leads to monumental changes in your life. It grants you power, the quiet, enduring, and deeply respected kind of power that truly lasts. End of chapter 4. Refuse the bait that triggers you. In every environment you navigate, within conversations, in conflicts, in the dynamic world of the workplace, within the intricacies of relationships, and especially in the often toxic landscape of online interactions, there exists something we call bait. Bait is anything deliberately designed, or even inadvertently offered, to ensnare you, to pull you into reacting emotionally, defensively, or impulsively. Might manifest as an outright insult, a subtly provocative comment, a disrespectful tone that grates on your nerves, a backhanded jab aimed at your self-esteem, a direct challenge to your competence, or even a seemingly innocent compliment laced with a competitive undertone. The primary purpose of bait is simple, yet devastatingly effective, to make you react. Because once you react, especially impulsively or emotionally, you effectively lose control. And once you lose control, even momentarily, someone else implicitly takes the lead in that interaction, gaining an unannounced, yet tangible, advantage. You must grasp this fundamental truth. Not every provocation, no matter how skillfully deployed, deserves a reaction from you. Sometimes, the bait is blaringly obvious. Someone speaks to you with overt rudeness or attempt to embarrass you in front of others, making their intent clear. Other times it is far more subtle, a quiet barb, like someone questioning your ability in an offhand manner, or making you feel as though you constantly need to prove your worth to them. But the very moment you grasp that bait, the moment you allow yourself to be pulled in, you step entirely into their frame of reference. You begin speaking their language, engaging in their battle, not your own. And that, in a silent but potent way, is how power subtly shifts from your hands into theirs, without anyone ever needing to announce it. People fall for bait for one predominant reason: the ego. The ego, by its very nature, absolutely despises being challenged, misunderstood, dismissed, or disrespected. When you perceive any of these slights, A primal part of you, the ego, surges forward, desperate to defend, to explain, to correct, to justify, to restore its image, to obtain justice right now, in this very instant. But reacting impulsively is rarely, if ever, the pathway to achieving any of those true objectives. In fact, reacting usually gives the other person precisely what they wanted from the beginning: unfettered access to your emotional system, a direct line to your vulnerabilities. If you observe real power dynamics, whether in history, politics, or everyday leadership, you will notice a consistent pattern. The genuinely strong rarely take the bait. Not because they are afraid, or because they are unaware of the slight, but because, if are strategic. They understand with crystal clarity that reacting impulsively is often exactly what the other side desires. If someone can successfully drag you out of character, make you lose your composure, make you emotional, they effectively win. And they win without lifting anything physically heavy, without exerting significant effort, simply by triggering your default reactive patterns. There is a timeless quote that fits perfectly here: "When you argue with fools, you become one." The moment you take the bait, you enter a space where the best possible outcome is a draw, a net gain of 0, and the worst outcome is significant damage to your reputation, your relationships, or your inner peace. You gain absolutely nothing of true value by attempting to prove yourself to someone who has deliberately set a trap for you. If they genuinely cared about truth, there would be no bait. If they were truly interested in understanding, there would be no provocation. Bait is not about seeking resolution. It is fundamentally about eliciting a reaction. This is precisely why restraint is a profoundly powerful move. When you consciously, deliberately refuse to take the bait, something truly interesting happens. The person who attempted to pull you into their vortex of drama now has to sit with their own unspent energy. Their tension has nowhere to go, no reactive counterpart to fuel it. And friskasiet way, their escalation finds no willing opponent to engage with. Their attempt at manipulation falls flat, exposed for what it is. And more often than not, it becomes blaringly obvious to everyone observing the interaction who truly holds the higher ground, who possesses genuine inner composure. Refusing the bait does not, under any circumstances, mean you allow people to walk all over you or disrespect you with impunity. It means you do not defend your ego at the cost of your long-term dignity. You do not react simply because someone has strategically poked at your pride. You do not engage in a fight just because someone is inviting you to one. Instead, you wait. You evaluate the situation with a calm, discerning mind. You decide, with clear intention, whether engagement truly benefits you or not. And most of the time, especially with the kinds of bait we are discussing, it simply will not. Consider the sheer amount of pain, drama, and irretrievably wasted time that occurs in life simply because someone took the bait. Arguments that drag on for days, escalating beyond all reason. Feuds that persist for months, sometimes years, poisoning relationships and environments. Resentment that festers for a lifetime, all born from a single moment of provocation. All because someone could not walk away, all because someone mistakenly believed that reacting impulsively was a demonstration of strength. True strength is not proven during the moment of provocation. True strength is demonstrated, unequivocally, during the act of restraint. Anyone can react. Anyone can hurl words, escalate conflict, or aggressively defend themselves. That, in its rawest form, is easy. What is genuinely difficult, what requires immense inner fortitude, is staying composed when every fiber of your being wants to fire back, because truly difficult is pausing to ask, who benefits if I respond right now? and coming to the liberating realization that the answer is almost certainly not you. Refusing the bait also serves as a powerful guardian of your reputation. People form opinions about others, not just from what they say, but perhaps more critically, from how they respond under stress, under challenge, under provocation. If you are easily triggered, you will be perceived as emotionally volatile and lightweight. If you are easily provoked, you will be seen as reactive and, crucially, predictable. Buffer force stealth. Once for all force hostility. If you refuse to be pulled into unnecessary battles, if you respond only when it truly matters, and with deliberate intention, you build a quiet, unshakable authority. And quiet authority, let me assure you, is one of the strongest and most enduring forms of social influence. Eventually, the act of refusing the bait transforms into a highly effective filter for your life. It keeps you out of petty conflicts, safeguarding your peace of mind. It keeps you out of low-level, unproductive conversations, preserving your intellectual energy. It keeps you out of situations that do not serve your higher goals or values. The world, by its very nature, is full of noise, full of seductive invitations to waste your finite energy. You do not possess unlimited energy to squander on such things. Choosing not to react, therefore, becomes a conscious strategy for conserving that energy for the things that genuinely matter, for the pursuits that truly build your life. The old version of you might have eagerly taken every bait, defending, arguing, proving, correcting, reacting to every single spark of external stimulus. The new version of you, the unrecognizable self, chooses silence when appropriate, strategy when necessary, and engagement only when it clearly serves your long-term direction and purpose. That, my friends, is how you cease being controlled by external triggers. That is how you reclaim ownership of your reactions. That is how you begin moving, decisively and powerfully, from emotional survival to true emotional leadership. Chapter 5. Rewrite the story in your mind. Every reaction you have, every emotional surge, every defensive posture is ultimately born from a story. Not simply the objective story of what happened in the external world, but more profoundly, the intricate, often unexamined story you tell yourself about what happened. Consider this powerful truth. Two individuals can experience the exact same external situation, witness the identical events unfold, yet react in completely opposite, even contradictory ways. This divergence is not because the event itself was different. It is because the meaning they assigned to that event, the story they constructed around it in their minds, was fundamentally different. Meaning drives emotion, and emotion, in turn, drives reaction. If you genuinely want to change the way you react to life's challenges, you must first learn to consciously change the story you attach to each moment. Imagine a common scenario. Someone interrupts you while you are speaking. One person might immediately interpret this as a deliberate slight, thinking, "They do not respect me. They think what I am saying is unimportant," and consequently feel a surge of anger or resentment. Another person, experiencing the identical interruption, might construct a different narrative, thinking, "They must be excited to contribute, or perhaps they did not realize I was not finished," and consequently feel nothing particularly negative, perhaps even amusement. Same objective event, two entirely different internal stories, leading to two drastically different emotional responses and reactions. When you learn to rewrite these internal stories, to consciously choose the narrative that serves you, you gain immense leverage over your entire emotional system. You become less sensitive to triggers, less controlled by the fragile demands of ego, and significantly less dominated by automatic assumptions that so often create unnecessary conflict and internal turmoil. The fundamental problem is that most of the stories we tell ourselves are not consciously chosen. They are automatic, deeply ingrained narratives that spring forth unbidden from a complex tapestry of past experiences, unresolved insecurities, lingering fears, unconscious biases, and unfinished emotional business. If, for example, you grew up in an environment where criticism, even constructive, consistently felt like a personal attack, you might automatically interpret neutral feedback as open hostility in your adult life. If your upbringing instilled a deep-seated need for constant external validation, you might interpret a moment of silence from others as a profound rejection. If you were raised amidst constant conflict and drama, you might subconsciously assume that any disagreement automatically equates to disrespect. None of these interpretations are universal truths. They are merely deeply personalized stories, narratives you have constructed over time. And until you actively choose to examine and update them, they will continue to dictate your reactions, often without your conscious consent, subtly robbing you of your true power. To effectively rewrite the story, you must first become profoundly aware of its existence. The next time something triggers an automatic, strong emotional reaction within you, pause. Take a moment and ask yourself, with genuine curiosity and detachment, what story am I telling myself right now about this situation? What meaning am I assigning to this event? That single question, simple yet penetrating, creates vital distance. It gives you enough cognitive space to observe your mind, to witness the narrative unfolding, instead of being immediately pulled into its powerful current. Sometimes you will notice that the story is wildly exaggerated, distorted, or overtly dramatic, a sensationalized version of reality. Other times, you will perceive that the story is rooted not in objective reality, but in a deeper, unaddressed fear or a lingering insecurity. And occasionally you will notice with startling clarity that there is absolutely no objective evidence for the story you are telling yourself at all. It is simply a fault mental habit, a well-worn groove in your psyche. Here is where your true power begins to grow. Once you identify the automatic, often unhelpful story, you are empowered to replace it with a better one. Not a delusional story, not a weak or submissive one, but a narrative that is more rational, more grounded, more strategic, and ultimately more empowering. Instead of the knee-jerk thought, "They did that deliberately to disrespect me," you might consciously choose to think, "Perhaps they are having a difficult day, and their behavior has nothing to do with me." Instead of the internal lament, "They are ignoring me, I must be unimportant," you might reframe it as, "People are busy, not everything is about me, and their attention is not my responsibility." Instead of the self-defeating conclusion, "I failed, this proves I am not good enough," you might intentionally shift to, "Failure is merely feedback, and I will adjust my approach and learn from this." None of these replacement stories are passive or submissive. They are acts of rational self-control, grounded in potential realities and inherently strategic. They offer you stability and clarity in moments that once only brought chaos. The biggest trap in this process is the unquestioning assumption that your story is the truth. It is not. It is merely one interpretation, one subjective lens through which you view reality. Until you learn to question your automatic narratives, they become a self-imposed prison, a mental cage. And that prison keeps you perpetually reactive, excessively defensive, and emotionally fragile. People who lack the capacity to rewrite their stories become unwitting victims of their own perception. They believe every thought they think and every feeling they feel, granting them unchallenged authority. But your thoughts are not always accurate reflections of reality, and your feelings while valid, are not always wise guides for action. You need both acute awareness and conscious control to build genuine emotional maturity. This skill matters immensely because your internal story does not just influence how you react, it profoundly influences who you become. If your predominant story is that the world is inherently against you, you will naturally become defensive and guarded. If your story tells you that everyone is constantly judging you, you will become perpetually insecure. If your story dictates that everything that happens is personal, you will live a life on edge, constantly anticipating slights. But if your story, through conscious cultivation, says that obstacles are opportunities to grow stronger, that criticism is merely fallback designed to help you evolve, and that external disrespect does not define your inherent worth, then you become resilient, empowered, and unshakable. Same world, vastly different identity. Rewriting the story also serves as a crucial protective barrier for your relationships. Much of the persistent conflict and misunderstanding in life does not stem from what objectively happened. It arises from the subjective interpretation, the story constructed around what happened. A single misunderstanding, left unexamined, can ignite a protracted war of words. One unchallenged assumption can irrevocably end a cherished friendship. One inaccurate or exaggerated story, believed implicitly, can damage trust for years, if not decades. People rarely fight over objective facts. They fight over the meanings they assign to those facts. And if you refuse to examine the meanings you automatically assign, you will, by default, spend your life reacting to things that might not even be real, to shadows and projections of your own internal narratives. This skill is also utterly essential for building unshakable confidence. Confidence is not the naive absence of doubt. It is the sophisticated ability to reinterpret situations, especially setbacks, in a way that consistently propels you forward. When genuinely confident people experience a failure, their internal story is, "I will learn from this, and I will adjust." When insecure people experience the same failure, their story is, "This proves I am not capable. I knew I could not do it." That fundamental difference in internal storytelling creates a monumental difference in subsequent behavior. And that difference in behavior ultimately creates a vast difference in results. With consistent practice, rewriting the story becomes second nature. You stop automatically assuming the worst. You stop personalizing every external event. You stop reacting to perceived shadows and phantom threats. You begin to interpret challenges as possibilities rather than dangers, and people around you will notice this profound shift. They will observe you remaining calm and centered. When others panic, they will see you respond with intelligence and intention. When others react with raw emotion, they will recognize that you no longer surrender your power to every situation or every person. That, my friends, is the beginning of becoming unrecognizable. Not because life suddenly becomes easier, but because your internal dialogue, your inner narrative, becomes immeasurably stronger, clearer, and more empowering. And clarity, born from intentional storytelling, produces profound control, control of thought, control of emotion, and ultimately, unshakable control of your reactions. That control will fundamentally change how you move through the world, how you speak, and eventually, how you live your entire life. Chapter 6. Upgrade how you present yourself to the world. The way you present yourself to the world is not merely a superficial veneer. It is a powerful, silent language that profoundly influences how the world, in turn, responds to you. This encompasses a multitude of elements: the cadence and modulation of your voice, the confidence or hesitation in your posture, the decisiveness of your actions, the measured quality of your reactions, and even the subtle, often unspoken, energy you emanate as you enter a room. People are ceaselessly reading these signals, both consciously and unconsciously. They perceive strength or insecurity, confidence or hesitation, a potential threat or a reassuring composure, a sense of capability or a lack thereof, all long before you utter a single word. And whether you fully realize it or not, these signals are instrumental in determining the opportunities that are extended to you, the quality of treatment you receive, and the level of respect you command. You have undoubtedly experienced this phenomenon firsthand. Some individuals possess an innate ability to walk into a space and, without uttering a sound, immediately set the tone, shifting the entire atmosphere. Others enter quietly and, just as instantly, seem to shrink into the background, that presence barely registered. What accounts for this profound difference? It is presentation. Not in the shallow sense of fashionable clothing or charismatic performance, but in the far deeper, more foundational sense of your embodied identity, your internal posture, and your profound sense of self-respect. You consciously control the way you present yourself. You actively influence how others choose to interact with you. When you relinquish control of that presentation, you effectively leave your identity open to interpretation, and people, more often than not, rarely interpret it in your favor. One of the fastest, most impactful ways to upgrade your presentation is through the deliberate control of your reactions. Emotional volatility, the tendency to be easily triggered or prone to dramatic outbursts, signals an inherent unpredictability. Unpredictability, in turn, signals instability. And instability, in any human interaction, makes people cautious, guarded, and often dismissive. When you are easily provoked or flustered, the world, with uncanny precision, learns exactly how to manipulate you. The more predictable and automatic your reactions are, the easier it becomes for others to control your emotional state, and by extension, your decisions. When you evolve into the kind of person who consistently responds with unwavering composure, even under immense stress and provocation, your entire presence transforms. Your silence becomes strategic, pregnant with meaning. Your restraint becomes impressive, a display of profound inner discipline. Your steadiness, your unwavering equilibrium, becomes a powerful form of influence. There is a crucial distinction to be made here. Presenting strength does not equate to acting tough or aggressive. True strength means acting in alignment with your highest self. Toughness is often noisy, a performance designed to intimidate. Strength, however, is quiet, self-contained, and deeply assured. Toughness is reactive, a knee-jerk defense. Strength is selective, choosing its moments with precision. Toughness tries desperately to impress others. Strength, on the other hand, possesses no such need. The person who constantly tries to look powerful is often, paradoxically, deeply insecure. The person who actually is powerful feels no need to announce it. Power, real power, is primarily felt through control, not control over others, but control over oneself. And the greatest, most undeniable display of that control is revealed in how you master your reactions when things inevitably do not go your way. Another vital aspect of your presentation emanates from how you speak. This is not merely about the specific words you choose, but equally about the timing of your delivery, the measured tone of your voice, the crystal clarity of your articulation, and the deep intention behind your message. Words spoken in a fit of frustration are rarely persuasive. They only convey emotional distress. Words spoken solely to impress others rarely garner genuine respect. They often reveal insecurity. Words spoken without a deliberate pause for thought are rarely truly listened to, for they lack gravitas. But words spoken with composure, precision, and a clear underlying intention create profound impact. The listener senses that you mean what you say, that you are not begging for agreement, that you possess an unshakable inner center. They feel the weight of your convictions. Your body language plays an undeniable role as well, not in the gimmicky sense of adopting superficial power poses, but in the foundational sense of how you genuinely carry yourself through the world. Do you slouch, conveying a lack of confidence or engagement, or do you stand with a natural, grounded presence? Do you rush through your movements, indicating anxiety or impatience, or do you move with deliberate intention and calm? Do you occupy your rightful space, conveying self-worth, or do you attempt to disappear, shrinking into the background? These are not trivial details. They are powerful, silent communicators that profoundly shape perception. People will, almost unconsciously, treat you according to how you treat yourself, how you carry your own being. If you consistently present yourself as someone who requires constant permission, the world will obligingly ask you to perpetually prove yourself. If, however, you present yourself as someone who intrinsically knows their value, the world, in subtle but undeniable ways, adjusts to accommodate that inherent worth. Your identity also develops and solidifies through consistency. When your behavior and reactions are consistent and predictable in a positive way, people learn to trust you. When you are erratic, volatile, or unpredictable in your emotional responses, people watch you with caution and uncertainty. Trust, once earned, opens doors to immense opportunity. Watching, on the other hand, creates hesitation and limits potential. Upgrading your presentation means becoming an individual whom others know how to reliably engage with. Someone whose reactions are stable, whose word is reliable, and whose decisions are not impulsively ruled by fleeting emotion. In the long run, that reputation becomes an unparalleled strategic advantage. People consistently prefer to partner with, promote, invest in, and ultimately bet on individuals who demonstrate the capacity to maintain composure and clarity under pressure. An often overlooked, yet critical part of presentation is the energy you bring into any given situation. Some individuals, burdened by their internal states, inadvertently carry an aura of urgency, anxiety, or insecurity wherever they go, subtly poisoning the atmosphere. Others, through conscious cultivation, emanate confidence, patience, and clarity, creating a reassuring and productive environment. Energy is communication without words. Energy creates atmosphere, and that atmosphere, in turn, profoundly influences decision-making and interaction quality. If your presence consistently puts others at ease, they become more willing to listen, more open to collaboration. If your presence, through your reactive patterns, adds tension or apprehension, they unconsciously prepare to defend themselves. Your reactions, one of the strongest contributors to the energy you project into the world. The more internal control you possess, the more stability, groundedness, and calm you will naturally radiate externally. Upgrading how you present yourself is not about constructing a deceptive facade or pretending to be someone you are not. Rather, it is about revealing a more disciplined, refined, and authentic version of who you already are, or aspire to be. It is the conscious process of systematically removing unnecessary behaviors and reactive patterns that weaken your influence and replacing them with intentional behaviors that consistently strengthen it. The individuals you admire for their powerful, composed presence were not born with it fully formed. They painstakingly built it. They built it by mastering the control of their reactions, by diligently regulating their emotions, and by learning to carry themselves with unwavering purpose and intention. Eventually, as your presentation evolves and solidifies, the world around you begins to treat you differently. People will interrupt you less. They will challenge you less. They will provoke you less. They will naturally respect your time and your boundaries more, and they will, almost automatically, approach you with a discernibly different tone, one of deference and respect. Not because you aggressively demanded respect, but because you consistently projected the image of someone who simply does not respond to disrespect impulsively. The old version of you reacted to everything, a constant emotional pendulum. The upgraded version reacts only to what truly matters, to what aligns with your purpose. When something catches you off guard, when a sudden challenge arises, when your buttons are pushed, your first reaction, that immediate visceral surge, is almost never the wisest one. The first reaction is, by its very nature, emotional. It is fast, intensely charged, and frequently based on incomplete information or an exaggerated interpretation of events. Impulse is a primal mechanism built for immediate survival, not for strategic foresight. It demands instant resolution, immediate clarity, a quick victory, or an immediate escape from discomfort. But life, in its profound wisdom, rarely rewards mere immediacy. Life consistently rewards alignment, alignment with your long-term goals, your deepest values, and your vision for who you are becoming. And alignment, almost without exception, comes from consciously choosing logic over impulse, especially in those critical moments when your emotions aggressively demand to seize the steering wheel. Impulse screams, react now, say something, do something. Logic, in its calm, steady voice, advises, think first, observe, process. Impulse insists, protect your pride at all costs. Logic gently reminds you, protect your future, for it is far more valuable. Impulse demands, make them feel what you feel, right now. Logic, with strategic clarity, asks what action truly benefits you in the long term, regardless of how you feel this instant. Notice the stark difference in their operating systems. One is loud, chaotic, and demanding. One is quiet, considered, and steady. One is impatient, craving instant gratification. One is patient, seeking sustainable results. And the version of you that ultimately becomes unrecognizable, the person who truly masters their destiny, is the one who consistently chooses results over immediate, fleeting relief. Most people harbor the comforting assumption that they are inherently logical. I know what is going on, they might think to themselves, believing that mere awareness equates to control. But knowing is not the same as choosing. You can possess a profound intellectual understanding of what is wise, what is strategic, what is right, and yet still react impulsively, driven by the seductive pull of what feels good or what provides instant emotional comfort in the moment. Logic does not merely reside passively in your mind. It must actively win the internal battle against your surging emotions when the moment truly tests you. That battle, that internal wrestling match, is precisely where emotional maturity is forged. Battle is where true strength is undeniably proven. Impulse, in its most fundamental form, is driven by three major motivations: ego, fear, and insecurity. Ego reacts to protect its perceived status, its image. Fear reacts to protect perceived safety, to avoid threat. Insecurity reacts to protect a fragile self-image, to avoid perceived judgment. None of these motivations are inherently wrong. They are simply incomplete. They lack foresight. They cannot see beyond the immediate horizon. They cannot consider future consequences, the ripple effects of an action. They cannot accurately calculate long-term impact. Logic, on the other hand, sees the entire chessboard. It asks crucial, expansive questions like, if I react this way, what is the probable sequence of events that will unfold? Or what will this truly cost me, in terms of relationships, reputation, or peace of mind? Is this a good trade? Am I sacrificing something valuable for something fleeting? The person who learns to think in terms of trades, to evaluate every reaction as an investment, weighing its costs and returns, becomes immensely powerful. Reactive people consistently lose because they thoughtlessly trade long-term respect for short-term emotional comfort. They trade a sterling reputation for a momentary emotional release. They trade profound control for an ephemeral expression of feeling, but resilient, strategic individuals do the exact opposite. They are willing to trade short-term emotional comfort for long-term respect. They trade impulsive expression for quiet influence. They trade knee-jerk reaction for powerful, sustainable leverage. That, in its essence, is what choosing logic looks like in practice. To consciously choose logic, you must first become exquisitely skilled at recognizing when impulse is attempting to enter the room, when it is trying to hijack your control panel. You will often notice its arrival in your body before you recognize it in your mind. Your chest might tighten, your breathing pattern might subtly shift, your tone of voice might sharpen, your thoughts might race, your patience might dramatically shorten, and a powerful, almost irresistible urge to respond will rise within you. These are not signs that you must react. These are crucial signs that you must pause. The very moment you feel that internal shift, that emotional surge, logic immediately becomes available to you. You simply have to consciously reach for it, deliberately activate it, before impulse takes action on your behalf. This is why training your awareness is absolutely essential. You cannot choose logic if you are utterly unaware of when you are being hijacked by emotion. You must learn to catch yourself mid-trigger, not an hour later, not after the argument has fully unfolded, not after the regret has set in, but precisely in the moment it is happening. That is the skill, that is the training, that is the real work. And the more consistently you practice, the faster you become at noticing the emotional surge and deliberately halting it before it transforms into an irreversible behavior. Once you notice the impulse, the next critical step is evaluation. Ask yourself, what outcome do I genuinely want here? This is an incredibly powerful question because it forcibly shifts your mind from a defensive, emotional posture to a strategic, outcome-oriented mode of thinking. The moment you begin to think in terms of desired outcomes, you cease reacting solely to the immediate moment, and you start responding intentionally to the overarching mission. And missions, let me assure you, always consistently outperform fleeting moments. A person who lives solely for the moment often burns bridges, creating chaos in their wake. A person who lives for the mission builds pathways, creating lasting progress. Choosing logic does not, by any means, imply becoming cold, unfeeling, or robotic. Emotion can absolutely still have a seat at the table of your internal council. It just cannot be allowed to run the meeting. Emotion brings passion, authentic connection, deep meaning, and vital drive to your life. Logic, on the other hand, brings clear direction, robust structure, unwavering clarity, and precise timing. When both work in harmonious concert, you become sharp, deliberate, and significantly harder to manipulate or dislodge from your path. When emotions are allowed to run unchecked, you become predictable, volatile, and easy for external forces to control. One of the most effective ways to strengthen your logical muscle is through the diligent study of consequences. Look back at your past reactions, both the proud ones and the regrettable ones, and ask, with unflinching honesty, did reacting quickly, impulsively, or emotionally truly serve me, or did it subtly or overtly sabotage me? You will invariably find that many of your regrets could have been easily avoided with just a little more space, a little more thoughtful consideration, or a little more patience. Your past is a profoundly wise teacher, and it teaches you not through punitive judgment, but through observable patterns. When you learn to see those patterns clearly, with detached awareness, you naturally stop repeating them. Eventually, something truly interesting begins to happen. The more you consciously choose logic over impulse, the less chaos, drama, and unnecessary conflict enter your life. People stop trying to bait you because they discover it simply does not work anymore. Potential conflicts de-escalate before they even have a chance to ignite. Opportunities, instead of being missed or burned by pride, start flowing towards you because you are consistently perceived as stable, dependable, and rational. And perhaps most importantly, you begin to deeply trust yourself, not just emotionally, but strategically. That profound self-trust becomes the unshakable foundation of the unrecognizable version of you. The old version reacted primarily to protect fragile pride. The new version responds with unwavering intention to protect purpose. And that fundamental difference, that shift in internal allegiance, will shape absolutely everything: how you think, how you interact with the world, and how you consciously build your life from this moment forward. Chapter 8. Stay calm when conflict invites chaos. Conflict is the ultimate crucible, the most rigorous testing ground for emotional discipline. Anyone, it seems, that can maintain composure when life is smooth, when plans are unfolding precisely as desired, when the people around them are agreeable and cooperative, and when effort consistently matches immediate results. But true composure, the kind that signifies profound inner strength, matters most precisely when things inevitably break. It matters when crushing disappointments arrive, when bewildering uncertainty appears on the horizon, and when life throws something at you that you absolutely did not choose, did not anticipate, and cannot immediately control. Hard times are not merely a test of your endurance. They are a profound exam on how adeptly you control your reactions when the pressure is not optional, when the stakes are high, and when everything within you screams for a different reality. And the stark difference between those who crumble under adversity and those who consistently grow through it is not a matter of luck or external circumstance, but of internal strategy. They possess the rare ability to transmute hard times into an advantage, rather than passively allowing them to become an insurmountable crisis. Most people, in the face of hard times, react instinctively and emotionally. They complain bitterly, they panic, they assign blame indiscriminately to others or to fate. They freeze, paralyzed by fear. They explain away responsibility, seeking comfort in victimhood. They distract themselves with unproductive activities, so they do not have to confront the harsh reality of their situation. But emotional reactions to adversity, while perhaps offering temporary psychological relief, rarely, if ever, produce useful or constructive outcomes. They might soothe the bruised ego for a fleeting moment, but they do not change anything external. They do not strengthen anything internal, and they certainly do not move anything forward. Hard times are not resolved by mere emotional expression. They are navigated and ultimately overcome through emotional leadership. Turning adversity into a profound advantage begins with one crucial mindset shift: Obstacles are not arbitrary interruptions to your carefully laid plans. They are, in fact, invaluable information. They serve as diagnostic tools, revealing precisely where your systems are weak, where your skills are incomplete, where your assumptions were unrealistic, or what fundamental aspects of your approach need to change. Without adversity, you would likely never have the impetus to examine those things with such scrutiny, because comfort, by its nature, subtly hides weaknesses. Problems, however, relentlessly expose them, and once something is exposed, once its vulnerability is laid bare, it can, finally, be improved. Think for a moment about any story of profound transformation, personal or historical, that you deeply admire. That transformation did not occur during a relaxing vacation. It did not happen when everything was going perfectly right. It did not unfold when the path ahead was perfectly paved and without resistance. No, it happened when something broke, when a plan catastrophically failed, when a seemingly insurmountable setback appeared, when comfort was utterly stripped away. Hard times force profound reflection. Reflection, in turn, produces clarity. Clarity, when embraced, produces decisive action, and decisive action, consistently applied, produces growth. There is no genuine sustainable growth without friction. Friction is, in essence, the unavoidable tax of progress. To effectively use adversity to your advantage, you must learn to vigorously resist the powerful urge to personalize it. Hard times are not evidence that the universe is conspiring against you, that you're inherently not good enough, or that the world is fundamentally unfair. Hard times are a universal constant. They visit everyone, regardless of merit or effort. The only meaningful difference is how individuals choose to interpret them. One person perceives adversity as a direct attack, a sign of their cosmic misfortune. Another person, with a refined internal narrative, sees adversity as intense training, a forge for their spirit. And the person who consistently sees it as training will, without question, eventually outgrow and outperform the person who only sees it as an attack. Another critical component of using adversity to your advantage is learning to deliberately slow down your default reaction. When something bad or unexpected happens, your nervous system, wired for survival, craves speed. It demands a fast explanation, instant comfort, an immediate escape from the unpleasantness. But the first explanation you instinctively offer yourself is often profoundly wrong, clouded by emotion. And the first solution you impulsively try is frequently reactive, not strategic. When you consciously pause, even for a few breaths, you create invaluable space for better, more rational, more strategic thinking to emerge. When you create that space, you cease reacting solely to the immediate pain, and you begin responding with deliberate intention to the core problem itself. Adversity also serves as a relentless revealer of character, not primarily to the world, but first and foremost to yourself. You learn in those challenging moments whether you quit easily or persevere. You learn whether you panic under pressure or maintain a steady hand. You learn whether you instinctively look for excuses or diligently search for solutions. You learn whether your deepest drive is comfort or purpose. Most people do not truly know the full measure of their character until adversity unequivocally shows up, because character is not built in theoretical contemplation. It is forged, undeniably, in conflict and struggle. Hard times also, without fail, demand responsibility. Responsibility, crucially, does not mean blame. Responsibility means profound ownership. Ownership of the next move, the next action, the next decision, or not necessarily responsible for everything that happens to you, for the external events that are beyond your control. But you are unequivocally responsible for how you respond to it. And the moment you fully take responsibility for your response, for your internal state, you stop passively waiting for life to magically fix itself. You become the agent of change, the one who adjusts, who adapts, who learns, who recalibrates, who gets up again, no matter how many times you fall. That, my friends, is power in its purest form. Turning adversity into advantage also means diligently extracting value from pain. Pain is not merely unpleasant. Pain is profound information. Pain is crucial feedback. Pain is a message, often stark and undeniable, telling you precisely where your evolution is required. Most people, tragically, try to numb pain, to avoid it, to distract themselves from its sting. But pain avoided is simply pain delayed. It will resurface when you learn to lean into it, to learn from it. Pain becomes potent fuel for growth. When you ignore it, pain becomes corrosive residue, a heavy, bitter sediment in your soul. Residue makes you heavy, resentful, and perpetually reactive. Fuel makes you stronger, wiser, and infinitely more intentional. Another powerful way to leverage adversity is through the clarity of direction it often provides. Hard times force difficult decisions. They compel you to choose, with stark clarity, what genuinely matters and what utterly does not. They act as a ruthless editor, eliminating distractions. They often expose and remove unnecessary people from your life. They shatter illusions. Clarity is an expensive commodity in life. You rarely get it for free. Adversity, in its demanding way, is one of the prices you pay for that invaluable clarity. Once you possess that clarity, your reactions become sharper, your priorities become cleaner, and your life becomes more profoundly aligned with your true purpose. The inescapable truth is that hard times will visit everyone eventually. You do not get to avoid them entirely. They are an inherent part of the human condition. But you do get to choose what they ultimately produce in you. You can allow adversity to shrink you, to diminish your spirit, or to profoundly strengthen you. You can let it make you bitter and cynical, or make you wiser and more compassionate. You can let it break you apart, or you can allow it to rebuild you, stronger and more resilient than before. Many of the strongest, most composed, and least reactive people you will ever encounter in life did not become that way because life was gentle, easy, or fair. They became that way precisely because life was not. The old version of you took adversity personally, reacting emotionally and defensively. The new version, the sovereign self, sees adversity as raw material, material for growth, for learning, for strategic refinement, for building unshakable resilience. And that profound shift, that internal alchemy, is one of the clearest, most undeniable signs of becoming truly unrecognizable to the person you used to be. Chapter 9. Do not waste your energy on every noise. One of the most insidious and exhausting ways to navigate life is to feel compelled to respond to everything. Every casual comment, every unsolicited opinion, every piece of trivial gossip, every subtle or overt provocation, every news headline, every minor slight, every fleeting inconvenience, all of it possesses the potential to utterly consume you, to drain your vital energy and focus if you do not master the essential art of filtering. Life, by its very nature, is loud. People, in their diverse expressions, are loud. World is saturated with a relentless torrent of noise, often cleverly disguised as importance, urgency, or vital information. And if you fail to develop the crucial discipline to ignore this pervasive noise, you will inevitably squander your most precious resource, your energy, on things that produce absolutely nothing of value in return. Noise, in this context, is anything that demands a reaction from you without offering a corresponding, tangible result or progress. Think for a moment about how frequently people fall into this deceptive trap. They react emotionally to the anonymous opinions of strangers online, getting pulled into endless, pointless debates. They react to fluctuating moods and insecurities of co-workers, allowing their own peace to be disrupted. They react with frustration to the inconsiderate behavior of drivers on the road, generating internal stress that serves no purpose. They react to relatives who thrive on drama, becoming unwilling participants in their chaos. They react to friends who inadvertently invite chaos into their lives. They react to people who crave attention more than they value truth or understanding. And every single one of those reactions comes at a profound cost: your energy. Energy that could have been thoughtfully invested in building a better life, in honing valuable skills, in strengthening meaningful relationships, in pursuing your purpose, or quite simply, in enjoying a profound sense of inner peace. You must grasp this fundamental truth. Energy is currency. It is your most valuable, non-renewable resource. Where you choose to spend it directly determines the returns you will receive in your life. If you squander it on noise, you will consistently receive nothing but fatigue and frustration. 4. If you invest it wisely in growth, you will accrue invaluable leverage and progress. If you spend it on drama, you will experience only depletion and exhaustion. If you allocate it diligently to discipline, you will inevitably reap tangible, transformative results. Strong people are not strong because they engage in more battles. They are strong precisely because they choose to engage in fewer battles, and critically, they choose the right battles, those that align with their purpose. Filtering noise begins with a profound recognition. Not everything, not by any stretch of the imagination, deserves your attention. Attention is one of the most powerful, most generative forms of power you possess. Whatever you consciously give your attention to inevitably grows and expands in your life. If you give disproportionate attention to problems, problems will proliferate and consume you. If you give focused attention to your goals will grow and materialize. Noise, by its very nature, craves and demands attention, and the very moment you surrender that attention, noise gains an insidious influence over you. But influence without conscious intention, without alignment with your higher purpose, is a dangerous and draining force. It makes you perpetually reactive rather than powerfully strategic. Social environments, both online and offline, often thrive on noise. Some individuals communicate not to genuinely connect or understand, but primarily to provoke a reaction. Some criticize, not with the intention to help or build, but to satisfy their own need to feel superior. Some engage in gossip, not to inform, but to distract, to entertain, or to subtly undermine. And if you fail to recognize these pervasive patterns, you will invariably find yourself dragged into battles that were never yours to fight, problems that were never yours to solve. Someone else's negativity will subtly become your own stress. Someone else's insecurity will morph into your argument. Someone else's drama will become the unwanted guest that drains your emotional weekend. Meanwhile, your own meaningful goals sit untouched. Your energy steadily drains, and your mind becomes cluttered with problems that were never truly yours to solve in the first place. There is a powerful mental shift, a paradigm change that transforms everything. Not every situation you encounter is yours to fix. Not every statement directed at you is yours to answer. Not every provocation is yours to immediately address. And not every emotion you witness is yours to match. When you cultivate the profound ability to let things pass through your mind without hooking into them, without allowing them to take root, you become remarkably difficult to disturb. That is not detachment in a cold, unfeeling sense. It is detachment in the mature, strategic sense. Detachment as a deliberate strategy, detachment as an intelligent filter, detachment as a powerful form of self-protection. To effectively avoid wasting your precious energy on noise, you must develop clear, unwavering criteria for engagement. Ask yourself simple, yet profoundly incisive questions. Does this truly matter in the grand scheme of things? Does responding to this serve my personal growth or my long-term goals? Will this specific issue matter in a month? Will it matter in a year? Does responding benefit me, or does it merely soothe a bruised ego? Most of the time, your ego, by its very nature, desperately wants to react, to defend, to justify. But your growth, your higher self, wants to ignore, to conserve, to transcend. The ego craves to be right. Growth craves to be effective. The ego seeks external attention. Growth seeks internal direction. Powerful example of this principle in action is the strategic use of silence. Silence is not a weakness. Silence can be a formidable shield, a powerful strategy, and an illuminating test. Silence forces others to reveal the true depth or the shallow emptiness of their intentions. If the noise is superficial, lacking genuine substance, it will die a quiet death without your participation, starved of the oxygen of your reaction. If the noise has genuine substance, if it contains valid information or a legitimate concern, it will persist with clarity, eventually making itself known in a constructive way. Silence, strategically deployed, teaches you, with profound accuracy, who genuinely deserves your energy and who merely seeks to consume it. People who truly seek understanding will calmly ask for it. People who thrive on drama will, predictably, escalate. Silence, therefore, brilliantly exposes motivations. Another key component in this mastery is emotional conservation. You possess a finite, limited emotional capacity. You cannot, realistically, invest in everything and everyone. If you carelessly waste your precious emotional resources on noise, you will inevitably lose the capacity and bandwidth to invest in the things that genuinely matter, your most important relationships, your deepest ambitions, your personal skill development, your life's overarching purpose, physical and mental health. Many people do not fundamentally lack motivation. They lack available emotional bandwidth because they have unconsciously spent it all on things that produced absolutely nothing of value. They were busy, but not truly productive. They were exhausted, but not genuinely fulfilled. The world, ultimately, rewards those who possess the wisdom to allocate their energy wisely. High performers, respected leaders, and mentally stable individuals all share this crucial trait. They do not react to everything. They fiercely protect their attention. They protect their time. They protect their emotional state, not out of selfishness, but out of a deep understanding that their internal resources are limited, invaluable, and must be guarded with unwavering vigilance. Eventually, when you consistently cease responding to every noise, something profoundly transformative occurs. Your life, surprisingly, becomes dramatically quieter. Not because the external world has fundamentally changed or become less noisy, but because you have changed. You stop hearing the constant, seductive invitations to chaos. You stop noticing the petty insults that once offended you deeply. You stop caring about the fleeting opinions that once held tyrannical control over your emotional state. You stop getting mindlessly dragged into pointless debates and arguments. The noise was always there, a constant hum. You simply consciously stopped tuning into it. The old version of you, the reactive self, constantly reacted to every noise, every stimulus. The new version, the unrecognizable self, listens only to the signal. Signal is information that genuinely helps you grow, build, learn, or move forward in a meaningful way. Noise is everything else. The moment you make that profound distinction, you stop carelessly wasting your power and begin with deliberate intention to reclaim your life. Chapter 10. Trade short-term comfort for long-term power. One of the fundamental, insidious reasons people consistently react impulsively is rooted in a compelling, yet deceptive, promise. Impulse offers immediate relief, relief from discomfort, a rapid escape from the sting of uncertainty, the awkwardness of embarrassment, the weight of pressure, or the intensity of an unwanted emotion. And that relief undeniably feels good in the moment. It effectively soothes the ego, protecting its fragile image. It delivers a tangible something, right now, in the present instant. But here lies the profound, often tragic, problem. The very things that feel undeniably good right now often come at an exorbitant cost later. And conversely, the very things that demand discomfort and effort right now often yield immense, lasting rewards later. This, my friends, is the foundational trade that unequivocally separates the easily triggered, the perpetually reactive, from the deeply disciplined, the truly self-mastered. Delayed gratification is not merely a financial concept, applicable only to saving money or investing for the future. It is a profound principle of emotional behavior. It is a cornerstone of identity. It defines how you navigate and handle stress, temptation, provocation, and desire. When you choose to react quickly, impulsively, you are making an unconscious choice for short-term comfort, an immediate balm for your emotional system. When you consciously choose to pause, to think, to reflect, and to respond deliberately, you are making a powerful, intentional choice for long-term power and the grand unfolding narrative of a life well lived. Long-term power, patiently cultivated, always, invariably, wins. Consider for a moment how often individuals unwittingly damage their future, their relationships, their reputation, for the fleeting sake of immediate comfort. They lash out in a moment of raw anger and irrevocably damage cherished relationships. They defend themselves aggressively and impulsively, and in doing so, damage their credibility and trustworthiness. They pursue external validation instantly, desperately, and in that chase, subtly damage their own dignity and self-respect. They argue to win today's petty skirmish, and in doing so, lose valuable influence and respect tomorrow. This destructive pattern is ubiquitous. Comfort now, severe consequences later. The more mature, more strategic path, however, flips this equation entirely. Discomfort now, profound strength later. Emotional maturity, a hallmark of the unrecognizable self, is built upon this precise principle. Strong, self-mastered individuals possess an uncommon tolerance for emotional discomfort. They can tolerate awkward silence without feeling compelled to fill it. They can tolerate delayed validation, knowing their worth is not dependent on external approval. They can tolerate uncertainty, trusting in their own process. They can tolerate being misunderstood, even temporarily, because they deeply understand that short-term discomfort is the price they willingly pay to buy long-term respect and power. Weak people, conversely, demand comfort now. They demand immediate explanations, immediate clarity, immediate validation. And in that relentless demand, they consistently lose leverage, control, and respect. A powerful example of this trade-off is the almost irresistible urge to react defensively. When someone offers criticism, however legitimate or misguided, the immediate, primal instinct is to explain yourself, to defend your actions, to correct perceived inaccuracies, to justify your choices. Why? Because the feeling of being misunderstood, of being misjudged, is profoundly uncomfortable for the ego. Mature individuals possess the capacity to sit within that discomfort. They understand that not every critic deserves a detailed clarification, and not every situation benefits from an immediate, exhaustive defense. Sometimes the most strategic move, the most powerful response, is to simply let misunderstandings resolve themselves over time through the undeniable evidence of your consistent actions and character. Sometimes the best response is quiet improvement, not loud explanation. Sometimes the tangible results you produce later will, with far greater power than any verbal defense, erase the doubts and criticisms people may harbor today. Another form of short-term comfort is the avoidance of difficult decisions. People often procrastinate, not primarily because they are lazy, but because the act of deciding, of committing to a path, inherently creates discomfort. Deciding means committing. Committing means risking failure, risking judgment, risking the unknown. Avoiding decisions feels temporarily good because it postpones that discomfort. No immediate judgment, no potential failure, no immediate responsibility. But long-term indecision is one of the fastest, most certain ways to lose power, to surrender agency over your own life. Powerful people make decisions. They willingly accept the discomfort of uncertainty now to gain clarity and direction later. Delayed gratification also applies powerfully to communication. When conflict inevitably arises, people often rush to resolve things immediately because the tension, the emotional friction, feels profoundly uncomfortable. But not every conflict should be resolved in the very moment you feel it. Sometimes, people involved need time to cool down, to process emotions. Sometimes new information needs to settle, to emerge. Sometimes true clarity only arrives after a period of deliberate silence and reflection. When you force resolution simply because you cannot tolerate emotional tension, you often solve nothing of substance. You merely soothe your own immediate feelings, often at the expense of a deeper, more lasting resolution. Then, there is the pervasive trap of instant pleasure, impulsive food cravings, thoughtless purchases, endless digital distractions, the insatiable seeking of social media validation. All of these offer immediate comfort, a fleeting hit of dopamine, with little to no long-term benefit. They are alluringly easy to indulge in because their rewards are immediate, tangible. But the more you indulge in immediate pleasure, the less you build your capacity for long-term power, for sustained discipline. Pleasure, by its nature, chases feelings. Power, by its nature, chases unwavering direction and purpose. You become a truly formidable individual when you can consistently delay gratification, when you can, with quiet resolve, say to yourself, I do not need to feel good right now. I am building something infinitely bigger, something more enduring. That mindset is rare. That mindset is precisely why the world, despite its initial resistance or even mockery, ultimately looks up to and respects disciplined people. Discipline is inherently respected. Instant gratification is common, and what is common rarely commands genuine admiration. To master the profound lesson of this chapter, you need to begin asking a new, more strategic question. When an impulse to react, to seek immediate comfort, shows up, ask yourself, what will this truly cost me in the long term? Not just emotionally, but in terms of your identity, your reputation, your future self. Every reaction you consciously choose or unconsciously allow is a powerful vote for the person you are actively becoming. React in anger, and you cast a vote for an angry identity. React in insecurity, and you vote for an insecure identity. React with wisdom, with patience, with strategic intent, and you cast a vote for a wise, powerful identity. The compounding effect of those votes, taken over time, shapes the very essence of your character. You also need to recognize that delayed gratification is not deprivation. It is, in its highest form, an investment. When you delay an impulsive reaction, you are investing in a better, more strategic response. When you delay seeking external validation, you are investing in self-respect, in internal validation. When you delay immediate pleasure, you are investing in long-term fulfillment and purpose. When you delay a heated argument, you are investing in peace, in clarity, in relationship preservation. Investment is, by its nature, uncomfortable and often demanding at the beginning, but profoundly rewarding at the end. Pleasure is often the opposite, immediately rewarding at the beginning, but subtly or overtly costly at the end. Eventually, as you consistently, consciously make the trade of short-term comfort for long-term power, you will notice something profoundly transformative. Your entire world will begin to organize itself around your unwavering discipline. Opportunities that were previously closed will mysteriously open. People will treat you with a different level of respect and consideration because you have chosen to treat yourself differently. Chaos will lose its insidious grip on you because it can no longer effectively bait you. The version of you that once desperately chased relief now, with quiet determination, chases mastery. And that version, that masterful self, is precisely the one that becomes truly unrecognizable. Not because life suddenly became magically easier, but because you resolutely stopped choosing fleeting comfort over enduring growth. End of chapter 11. Starve the drama that drains your focus. Drama is one of the most insidious and pervasive thieves of human potential. It steals your precious time, hijacks your valuable attention, and siphons off your finite emotional bandwidth. And perhaps worst of all, it relentlessly drains your focus, pulling you away from the meaningful pursuits that genuinely build your life. People often profoundly underestimate how costly drama truly is, primarily because most drama, in the moment, feels justified. It presents itself as something you absolutely must address, something you must correct, something you must respond to, something you must fix, right now. But when the dust eventually settles, when the emotional residue clears, you are left with the stark realization that it produced absolutely nothing of value. No growth, no progress, no genuine improvement, no elevation of your spirit or your circumstances, just profound fatigue and a deep sense of wasted energy. Where there is drama, there is an almost magnetic pull for a reaction, an irresistible invitation to engage, and that, precisely, is why drama exists. It feeds ravenously on reaction. Without reaction, drama shrivels and dies. Without attention, drama evaporates into thin air. Drama, by its very nature, absolutely requires participation. And the very moment you grasp this fundamental truth, that drama is primarily a demand for your emotional participation, you gain the profound power to starve it, to cut off its lifeblood. You begin to understand, deeply and intuitively, that saying nothing is sometimes infinitely stronger and more impactful than saying everything. You begin to comprehend that allowing a tense situation to pass through you, without hooking into it, without becoming emotionally entangled, is not a weakness, but an advanced skill, a profound act of self-mastery. Drama often begins with seemingly small, almost imperceptible provocations. A sarcastic comment disguised as humor, a backhanded compliment that stings, a subtle jab breeds insecurity, a piece of unwarranted gossip, an unnecessary comparison that fuels envy, or a disagreement that could easily have remained a productive conversation, but rapidly escalates into a full-blown conflict because fragile egos got involved. These microdramas occur daily, in countless forms, and most people, tragically, take the bait without even noticing the hook. Before they are fully aware, they find themselves deeply invested in an argument that serves no discernible purpose, passionately defending a position that holds no real significance, or fighting desperately for validation from people who, frankly, do not genuinely care about their well-being. Drama thrives in environments where ego is fragile and attention is cheap, readily available. It flourishes where people prioritize being right over being genuinely effective. It finds fertile ground where individuals seek fleeting external validation more than they seek sustainable, meaningful results. The fastest, most effective way to extinguish drama is to systematically remove its audience, which, in most cases, is you. If you steadfastly refuse to engage, you refuse to fuel its fire. If you choose not to over-explain, you refuse to feed its voracious appetite for attention. If you decline to defend yourself against every slight, you refuse to expand its destructive reach. Most drama escalates precisely because both sides keep throwing firewood onto the flames. One person throws a spark, perhaps a careless comment, and the other person, caught in the reactive loop, throws gasoline onto the embers. Before long, it erupts into an inferno that neither side truly intended, consuming everyone involved. To starve drama, you must cultivate profound emotional discipline. Emotional discipline does not mean you avoid conflict entirely. Conflict is a natural, sometimes necessary, part of life. It means you address conflict directly, but without inviting chaos into your internal world. It means you resolve issues with intention and clarity, not with theatrical performance. It means you communicate with genuine purpose, not with competitive aggression. It means you consistently choose clarity over theatrics. Rafa's very nature is theatrical. It craves an audience and stage. Maturity, however, is quiet, self-contained, and intentional. Drama wants an audience. Maturity wants a resolution. Drama seeks escalation. Maturity seeks understanding. Another pervasive source of drama is gossip. Gossip is, essentially, drama transferred through conversation. It acts as a contagious virus, spreading fear, doubt, insecurity, and tension throughout relationships and communities. Gossip exists because it offers people a fleeting sense of involvement, of belonging, without demanding any true responsibility or constructive action. It offers a cheap form of entertainment, without any genuine meaning or purpose. But the true cost of gossip is not paid in the immediate moment. It is paid later, in the erosion of trust, the fracturing of relationships, and the pervasive emotional contamination it leaves in its wake. When you participate in gossip, even passively, even by merely listening, you implicitly carry other people's emotional baggage and unaddressed problems into your own mental space. And once those external problems are inside your mind, they settle there, subtly draining the focus and energy that could have been used for something real, something constructive, something meaningful in your own life. Drama also frequently arises from over-explanation. When you constantly feel the need to explain yourself to everyone who questions you, you inadvertently open countless doors to endless debates, to further scrutiny, to more drama. Not everyone needs access to your reasoning. Not everyone deserves access to your deepest intentions. Explanations should be reserved for those who are genuinely affected by your decisions, those whose understanding truly matters, not those who are merely curious, judgmental, or seeking a cheap thrill. When you learn to stop over-explaining, you effectively shrink the battlefield, and many dramatic fires extinguish themselves because there is no longer enough oxygen, no longer enough of your energy to keep them burning. There is also drama that stems from simply overreacting to small inconveniences. Someone is running a few minutes late. Someone forgets a minor detail. Someone does not respond to your message precisely when you expected them to. Someone expresses disagreement with your idea. These are, in the grand scheme of things, minor, transient events. Yet they possess the potential to become dramatic explosions if your emotional response disproportionately inflates their significance. When you consistently treat small things as if they are monumental crises, you inadvertently train your nervous system to live in a perpetual state of chaos and hyperreactivity. The strongest, most composed people do not make small things bigger. They possess the wisdom and skill to make big things smaller, to break down complex problems into manageable components. They de-escalate instead of escalate, and in doing so, they consciously preserve their invaluable internal peace. Here is the profound bigger picture. Drama, relentlessly, steals from your most cherished goals. It steals from your creativity, your discipline, your relationships, and your mental clarity. Individuals who are constantly embroiled in drama rarely make meaningful, sustained progress, because genuine progress absolutely requires sustained, uninterrupted focus. When your attention is constantly bouncing between emotional fires, between one crisis and another, you never accumulate enough internal fuel, enough consistent energy for the arduous work required for long-term achievement. Drama makes you perpetually reactive. Greatness, however, demands that you be proactively intentional. The very moment you begin consistently starving drama, your life will begin to change, profoundly and noticeably. Conversations will become shorter, more purposeful. Relationships will become healthier, more authentic. Boundaries will become clearer, more respected. Your mind, previously cluttered with external noise, will become remarkably quieter. People who thrive on chaos and seek to involve you will either adjust their behavior to match your new boundaries, or, predictably, they will gradually drift away from your orbit. And your precious time, which was once relentlessly spent managing other people's emotions and extinguishing their fires, will suddenly become abundantly available for building your own life, for pursuing your own purpose. This is not selfishness. It is profound sovereignty. The old version of you, the reactive self, quickly reacted to every spark of drama. The new version, the unrecognizable self, learns to let those sparks burn out harmlessly on their own, starved of your emotional fuel. That does not just protect your peace, it actively builds your power. The less you feed drama, the more energy you liberate for growth. And that liberated energy is precisely what separates the distracted from the focused, the reactive from the intentional, and the ordinary from the truly unrecognizable. Chapter 12. Stop begging for opinions and validation. One of the most subtle, yet deeply pervasive, forms of emotional slavery is the persistent need for external validation. It operates quietly, often invisibly, and is, tragically, widely socially acceptable. People rarely admit to it, even to themselves, but much of their chronic stress, their gnawing frustration, and their deep-seated insecurity stems from this relentless pursuit of approval, from wanting others to perpetually confirm that they are good enough, talented enough, worthy enough, intelligent enough, successful enough. And because external validation, when received, often feels momentarily good, like a warm blanket, many individuals fail to recognize it for what it truly is, a seductive and destructive trap. But a trap it undeniably is. The very moment you require someone else's approval to feel secure, to feel complete, you implicitly hand them control over your emotional reactions, over your inner peace, and over your sense of self-worth. Validation is powerfully addictive because it offers a quick, albeit temporary, solution to a profound discomfort, uncertainty. When you are genuinely unsure about your decisions, you instinctively ask others what they think, seeking their affirmation. When you feel insecure about your appearance or your presentation, you unconsciously seek compliments and reassurance. When you doubt your inherent abilities, you desperately chase external praise. When you are not sure if your work is truly valuable or impactful, you anxiously chase likes, comments, and applause on social media. And like any quick fix, any temporary balm, validation feels intensely satisfying at first, a fleeting sense of acceptance. But the more you come to rely on it, the more dependent you become, the weaker you inevitably become without it. This constant, insatiable need for external confirmations subtly, yet powerfully, drains both your innate confidence and your precious independence. If you need someone else to tell you that you are doing well, then by the same token, someone else possesses the power to tell you that you are not. If you require someone to confirm that you are enough, then someone else can, just as easily, tell you that you are not. Validation, therefore, opens the door to external control in both directions. It grants power to both praise and criticism, and that, unequivocally, is not power. That is profound dependency. There is also a deeper, more insidious psychological problem inherent in the perpetual seeking of external validation. It compels you to perform instead of truly live. Instead of engaging in activities and pursuits because they genuinely matter to you, because they align with your deepest values, you find yourself doing them primarily because they look good to others, because they might elicit applause. Instead of consciously building the authentic life you truly desire, you find yourself constructing a life you believe other people will approve of, a life designed for external consumption. And nothing, absolutely nothing, drains your authenticity faster or more thoroughly than this constant performance for an external audience. The more you perform, the further you drift from who you actually are, from your true essence, from your inherent self-worth. To effectively break free from the validation trap, you must cultivate a radically different internal orientation, internal referencing. Internal referencing means you consciously evaluate your choices, your actions, and your decisions through the lens of your own deeply held values, your own intrinsic goals, and your own unwavering principles, not through the lens of someone else's reactions, opinions, or approval. Internal referencing asks, with clarity and conviction, is this action, this decision, aligned with who I authentically want to be, with my highest self? Instead of the fear-driven question, will people like this? Will they approve? When internal referencing becomes your unwavering compass, your guiding star, you stop begging for opinions, and with quiet power, start owning your own direction, your own journey. There is a fundamental, often misunderstood, difference between seeking information and seeking validation. Information, when sought with discernment, helps you improve, to grow, to refine your approach. Validation, however, merely helps you feel accepted or temporarily comfortable. Information has a constructive purpose. Affirmative validation, conversely, often stems from a deep-seated craving for approval. You can, and should, consult experts for valuable information and feedback. But validation is often sought from anyone willing to give attention, regardless of their expertise or insight. That, precisely, is why the need for validation can make you so susceptible to manipulation. Anyone who understands how deeply you crave external approval can subtly control your mood, your decisions, and your direction with a single, strategically placed comment. Another debilitating side effect of validation seeking is profound hesitation. When you perceive that you need someone else's explicit approval before you can move forward, before you can act, you inevitably move slowly. You overthink every step. You wait. You delay. You endlessly ask around, gathering opinions. And while you are passively waiting for others to grant you permission, someone else, an individual who operates from a place of internal validation, with no such need for external approval, takes decisive action and seizes the very opportunities and results you desperately wanted. Many people are not fundamentally lacking in talent or intelligence. They are simply waiting for someone to applaud before they dare to begin performing, before they dare to truly live. Validation is also inextricably tied to fear, fear of disapproval, fear of judgment, fear of being misunderstood, fear of disappointing others. But here is the profound, liberating truth. You will be judged. No matter what you do, you will disappoint someone at some point, no matter how hard you try to please. You will be misunderstood, inevitably, at some juncture in your life. There is simply no version of human existence where everyone, universally, approves of you, your choices, or your path. Even the most admirable figures in history have had their vehement critics. Even the most successful individuals have faced relentless doubters. Even the kindest people have had their detractors. If you are waiting for universal approval before you take action, you are, in essence, waiting for a reality that simply does not exist. To permanently stop begging for validation, you need to deliberately build unwavering self-respect. Self-respect does not magically emerge from external compliments or accolades. It is painstakingly built through consistent, intentional decisions. It comes from the quiet satisfaction of doing what you said you would do, even when it is difficult. It comes from taking full responsibility for your choices, owning your outcomes. It comes from moving purposefully towards your goals, even when no one else is watching, even when there is no external applause. The more you genuinely respect yourself, the less you will feel the desperate need for others to confirm your inherent worth. External validation then becomes a welcome bonus, a pleasant affirmation, but never a foundational requirement. You also need to cultivate the capacity to live with disapproval, the ability to be disliked, when necessary, and when aligned with your values, is a profound form of emotional strength. If you constantly need to be liked by everyone, you will, without fail, never make truly strong, impactful decisions, because strong decisions almost always, by their very nature, upset someone. People who achieve genuinely meaningful things in life invariably disturb comfort. They challenge existing assumptions. They break stagnant patterns. They set clear, unwavering boundaries. They walk away from situations and relationships that others tolerate out of fear or complacency. None of these courageous actions are universally approved of, but all of them are an essential part of constructing a life that is authentically yours, a life of profound self-sovereignty. Eventually, when you consistently stop begging for opinions and validation, something profoundly significant changes within you. You begin to express yourself authentically, without needing external permission. You pursue your deepest goals with unwavering determination, without requiring constant applause. You stand confidently in any room, without shrinking your presence or dimming your light. You stop feeling the compulsion to explain your decisions to people who are not genuinely affected by them or who are committed to misunderstanding you. And most importantly, you stop allowing fleeting external opinions to dictate your immutable identity. The old version of you, the validation-seeking self, constantly asked, "Do they approve of me?" The new version, the sovereign self, calmly and confidently asks, "Is this right for me? Is this aligned with my purpose?" That profound shift is precisely where emotional independence begins. And emotional independence is one of the strongest, most liberating forms of identity you can ever develop. Because once you validate yourself, deeply and intrinsically, no one else, absolutely no one, gets to decide who you are. Chapter 13. Respond with strategy, not emotion. One of the most vital and transformative upgrades you can make in your life is the conscious shift from knee-jerk, emotional reactions to deliberate, strategic responses. Emotional reactions are immediate, raw, and fundamentally based on how you feel in the fleeting moment. They are often a primal surge of energy, unfiltered and impulsive. Strategic responses, conversely, are deliberate. They are consciously chosen. They are meticulously based on what truly serves you in the long term, what aligns with your overarching goals and values. The profound difference between these two modes of engagement is the difference between merely living as a passive participant in life, swept along by its currents, and living as an active, powerful creator of your own life, purposefully steering your course. Strategy, by its very nature, demands acute awareness, awareness of yourself, of the situation, of potential outcomes. Emotion, however, requires only unchecked impulse, a primal response. Emotion, in its reactive state, primarily asks, "How do I feel right now, in this instant?" Strategy, with its calm, far-sighted gaze, asks, "What specific outcome am I trying to create in this situation? What is the desired end state?" That single fundamental shift in orientation, from feeling to outcome, changes absolutely everything. When you begin to consistently think in terms of outcomes, instead of being driven solely by your emotions, you cease merely reacting to the immediate moment. You begin, with immense power, to actively direct and shape the unfolding situation. And the individual who consistently directs the situation is almost always the one who walks away with the decisive advantage. Responding with strategy does not, by any means, imply suppressing or repressing your emotions. Emotions are, in fact, invaluable information. They serve as potent signals. Anger, for instance, might be telling you that a boundary has been crossed, that your values have been violated. Sadness tells you that something meaningful has been lost, that you are grieving. Fear signals that something uncertain, potentially threatening, or deeply unfamiliar lies ahead. Jealousy, in its raw form, reveals what you truly value and perhaps desire. Insecurity might be telling you that a certain aspect of your identity requires further development or strengthening. Emotions, therefore, provide you with crucial data, raw input. Strategy, then, is the intelligent process of deciding what to do with that data, how to leverage it constructively. When people mistakenly confuse raw emotion for clear direction, their reactions become predictably unpredictable, volatile, and far too often profoundly self-sabotaging. Consider the dynamics of conflict. In most conflicts, reacting emotionally typically escalates the problem, making it worse. People become defensive, their voices rise, their arguments grow louder, and they become more invested in the ego-driven need to be right rather than in finding a resolution. But when you approach conflict strategically, you ask fundamentally different questions. You inquire, what is this conflict really about beyond the surface arguments? What does the other person genuinely need to feel or to understand in this moment? What specific outcome would truly benefit both sides, preserving what matters? Strategic questions deftly shift the focus from the petty need to win the argument to the far more valuable objective of resolving the situation. And genuine resolution is, invariably, far more valuable and enduring than a fleeting, ego-driven victory. Strategy also applies profoundly to timing. Not every response you formulate should happen immediately. Sometimes, the smartest, most powerful thing you can do is to simply wait. Wait until the initial surge of emotion settles. Wait until more complete information arrives, illuminating the nuances of the situation. Wait until the other side, through their actions or continued words, reveals their true intentions. Strategic individuals understand that timing is a powerful, often overlooked weapon. They do not rush to speak just because there is a silence. They do not rush to act just because there is external pressure. They do not rush to explain themselves simply because someone demands immediate answers. Instead, they consciously choose the precise moment that grants them the highest leverage, the greatest impact. Another critical component of strategic response is consciously choosing the right medium for your communication. Not every disagreement, no matter how minor, should occur over text message, where tone is easily misinterpreted. Not every important, sensitive conversation should happen publicly, open to misinterpretation or judgment. Not every issue, no matter how pressing, necessarily needs an audience or should be broadcast widely. Emotional people, in their impulsiveness, often choose the fastest, most convenient medium. Strategic people, however, consciously choose the most effective medium for their specific mission. If clarity and nuance matter most, they opt to speak in person. If documentation and record-keeping are paramount, they choose to write. If relationship preservation and empathy are key, they prioritize a face-to-face meeting or a heartfelt phone call. The medium is never random. It consciously serves the overarching mission. There is also a profound discipline inherent in strategic restraint. Sometimes the very best move, the most powerful response, is no move at all. Not responding can be in itself a powerful response. Silence can be a profound statement. A strategic withdrawal from a toxic dynamic can establish an impenetrable boundary. Careful observation can be, in certain contexts, a deeply effective strategy. Emotional people often fear silence because silence feels like uncertainty, like a void that must be filled. But strategic people value silence precisely because silence creates invaluable space for crucial information to surface, for clarity to emerge. Silence, skillfully employed, forces others to reveal themselves, their true intentions, their vulnerabilities. It also serves as a potent preventative measure, stopping you from turning temporary feelings into permanent, often regrettable, consequences. Strategic response is not about manipulative tactics or deceptive games. It is, at its core, about profound intention. It is about consistently asking, what am I truly trying to build here? What matters most in this specific situation? What outcome genuinely aligns with my long-term future, with my purpose? Emotional reactions are, by definition, about right now. Strategic responses are, by definition, about what happens next. Maturity, in this context, is measured by how far into the future your decisions and responses are capable of seeing, of influencing. Some people, trapped in reactivity, see only the next 5 seconds. Others, operating strategically, see the next 5 years, or even beyond. That monumental difference in horizon explains why some individuals consistently create progress build empires, and lead meaningful lives, while others, perpetually reactive, create only chaos and stagnation. Responding strategically also serves as a crucial protective measure for your invaluable relationships. When you react emotionally, impulsively, you might utter words you do not truly mean, or escalate something that could have been handled calmly and constructively. Emotional damage is often far harder to repair than situational damage. A problem, however complex, can often be fixed, given time and effort. But words spoken in anger, once released, sometimes cannot ever truly be taken back, leaving lasting scars. Strategic responses slow the tempo of interaction, allowing you to preserve what truly matters, your relationships, your integrity, without sacrificing your dignity or your long-term goals. Another immense benefit of strategic response is its profound influence on perception. People universally respect those who do not react impulsively, who possess a calm, measured demeanor. People inherently trust those who remain composed and clear-headed under pressure when others are panicking. People are drawn to follow those who think clearly, with foresight, when everyone else is lost in emotional fog. This is not about deliberately impressing anyone. It is about consistently demonstrating that you are not controlled by your external environment, by fleeting stimuli. That, my friends, is power, not the loud, chaotic, performative kind, but the quiet, enduring kind that builds an unshakable reputation over time. To truly master strategic responding, begin by consistently employing 3 core questions whenever something triggers you. Whenever you feel that surge of impulse. First, what outcome do I actually want here? Second, will reacting emotionally in this moment genuinely get me that desired outcome? And third, what response, what deliberate action increases my leverage and control instead of decreasing it? When you start evaluating situations through this powerful lens, something remarkable begins to happen. Your life will become dramatically less reactive and infinitely more intentional. You will naturally stop fighting battles that do not genuinely matter. You will cease over-explaining yourself to every curious party. You will stop arguing with people who are, for whatever reason, committed to misunderstanding you. You will stop reflexively defending yourself against every passing opinion. You will conserve your precious energy, diligently allocating it for the things that truly move your life, your purpose, and your legacy forward. The old version of you, the reactive self, constantly reacted emotionally and then wondered, with frustration, why things perpetually remained messy and chaotic. The new version, the unrecognizable self, responds strategically and with quiet satisfaction, watches life become more aligned, more purposeful, more controlled. That profound shift does not make you cold or unfeeling. It makes you powerfully effective. And effectiveness is precisely what builds the kind of life that eventually makes you truly unrecognizable to the person you used to be. Chapter 14. Turn hard times into an advantage. Everyone, it seems, yearns to remain composed when life is flowing smoothly, when their carefully laid plans are unfolding perfectly, when the people surrounding them are agreeable and supportive, and when their efforts are consistently met with immediate, favorable results. Genuine composure, the kind that signifies profound inner strength and mastery, is truly tested and truly revealed when things inevitably break. It is proven when disappointments, large and small, arrive unbidden, when bewildering uncertainty clouds the horizon, and when life, with its relentless unpredictability, throws something at you that you absolutely did not choose, did not anticipate, and cannot, in the moment, simply wish away. Hard times are not merely a test of your endurance, a measure of your capacity to withstand pain. They are, more accurately, an intensive exam on how skillfully you control your reactions when the pressure is not optional, when the stakes are high, and when everything feels beyond your immediate control. And the profound difference between those who crumble, who are diminished by adversity, and those who consistently grow stronger, more resilient through it, is not a matter of luck or innate talent, but of conscious strategy. They possess the rare alchemical ability to transmute hard times into an invaluable advantage, rather than passively allowing them to become an insurmountable, life-defining crisis. Most people, when confronted with hard times, react instinctively and emotionally. They complain bitterly, they succumb to panic, they indiscriminately assign blame to external circumstances or to others. They freeze, paralyzed by fear and uncertainty. They construct elaborate explanations to deflect responsibility, seeking comfort in victimhood. They distract themselves with unproductive activities, anything to avoid confronting the harsh reality that confronts them. But emotional reactions to adversity, while perhaps offering a fleeting moment of self-soothing, rarely, if ever, produce useful, constructive, or forward-moving outcomes. They may temporarily pacify the bruised ego, but they do not change anything external. They do not strengthen anything internal, and they certainly do not advance your life's purpose. Hard times are not magically solved by emotional expression. They are navigated, understood, and ultimately overcome through emotional leadership, a calm, intentional, and strategic response to inner turmoil. Turning adversity into a profound advantage begins with one crucial, foundational mindset shift. Obstacles are not arbitrary interruptions to your carefully constructed plans. They are, in fact, invaluable information. They serve as a powerful diagnostic tool, revealing precisely where your systems are weak, where your skills are incomplete, where your prior assumptions were unrealistic or flawed. They reveal, with stark clarity, what truly needs to change, what aspects of your approach or your being require evolution. Without adversity, without the friction it inevitably brings, you would likely never have the impetus, the necessary motivation, to examine those critical things with such scrutiny, because comfort, by its very nature, subtly hides weaknesses and blinds you to flaws. Problems, however, relentlessly expose them. And once something is exposed, once its vulnerability or inadequacy is laid bare, it can finally be improved, refined, or utterly transformed. Think for a moment about any story of profound personal or collective transformation that you deeply admire, a narrative of resilience, innovation, or breakthrough. That transformation did not occur during a luxurious vacation. It did not happen when everything was going perfectly right, when the winds were always at their back. It did not unfold when the path ahead was perfectly paved, smooth, and without resistance. No, it happened precisely when something broke, when a grand plan failed, when a seemingly insurmountable setback appeared, when comfort was utterly stripped away, when the known world dissolved. Hard times, in their demanding way, force profound reflection. Reflection, when pursued with honesty, produces clarity. Clarity, when embraced, produces decisive, intentional action. And decisive action, consistently applied, produces genuine, sustainable growth. There is no true, meaningful growth without friction, without resistance. Friction is, in essence, the unavoidable tax of progress, the price of evolution. To effectively use adversity to your advantage, you must vigorously resist the powerful, almost primal urge to personalize it. Hard times are not conclusive evidence that life is unjustly conspiring against you. that you are inherently not good enough, or that the world is fundamentally unfair in your specific case. Hard times are, simply put, universal. They are an inherent, inescapable part of the human experience. They visit everyone, regardless of their inherent worth, their efforts, or their good intentions. The only meaningful difference lies in how individuals choose to interpret them, how they choose to frame their narrative. One person perceives adversity as a direct, malevolent attack, a sign of their cosmic misfortune, and reacts with anger or despair. Another person, with a more refined and empowering internal narrative, sees adversity as an intense training regimen, a forge for their spirit, and reacts with determination and a thirst for learning. And the person who consistently sees it as training will, without question, eventually outgrow and outperform the person who only sees it as an attack. Another critical component of leveraging adversity for your benefit is learning to deliberately slow down your default reactive response. When something genuinely bad or unexpected happens, your nervous system, wired for immediate survival, craves speed. It demands a fast explanation, an instant dose of comfort, a swift escape from the unpleasantness. But the first explanation you instinctively offer yourself is often profoundly wrong, clouded by raw emotion, distorted by fear. And the first solution you impulsively try is frequently reactive, born of panic, rather than strategic or effective. When you consciously pause, even for a few deliberate breaths, you create invaluable cognitive space for better, more rational, more strategic thinking to emerge. Number one, when you create that space, you cease reacting solely to the immediate pain, and you begin responding with deliberate intention to the core problem itself, to the underlying challenge. Adversity also serves as a relentless revealer of character, not primarily to the external world, but first and foremost to yourself. In those challenging moments, you learn whether you possess the grit to persevere or the tendency to quit easily. You learn whether you succumb to panic under pressure or maintain a steady, composed hand. You learn whether your default mode is to seek out excuses or to diligently search for viable solutions. You learn whether your deepest drive is immediate comfort or profound purpose. Most people do not truly know the full measure of their character, their inner fortitude, until adversity unequivocally shows up, because character is not built in theoretical contemplation or in a vacuum. It is forged, undeniably, in conflict, in struggle, and in the fires of challenge. Hard times also, without fail, demand responsibility, and responsibility, crucially, does not equate to blame. Responsibility means profound ownership, ownership of your reactions, ownership of your decisions, ownership of the very next move. You do not have to be responsible for everything that happens to you, for the external events that are entirely beyond your control. But you are, unequivocally, responsible for how you respond to it. And the moment you fully take responsibility for your response, for your internal state, you stop passively waiting for life to magically fix itself, for external forces to rescue you. You become the agent of change, the one who adjusts, who adapts, who learns, who recalibrates, who gets up again, no matter how many times you stumble or fall. That, my friends, is power in its purest, most potent form. Turning adversity into advantage also means diligently extracting profound value from pain. Pain is not merely unpleasant. Pain is profound information. Pain is crucial feedback. Pain is a clear, often stark and undeniable message telling you precisely where your evolution is required, where a shift is needed. Most people, tragically, try to numb pain, to avoid it, to distract themselves from its sting. But pain avoided is simply pain delayed. It will inevitably resurface, often with greater intensity. When you learn to lean into it, to examine it, to learn from it, pain becomes potent fuel for growth, a catalyst for transformation. When you ignore it, when you push it away, pain becomes corrosive residue, a heavy, bitter sediment in your soul. Residue makes you heavy, resentful, and perpetually reactive. Fuel makes you stronger, wiser, and infinitely more intentional, more purposeful. Another powerful way to leverage adversity is through the clarity of direction it often provides. Hard times force difficult decisions. They compel you to choose, with stark clarity, what genuinely matters and what utterly does not. They act as a ruthless editor, eliminating distractions, cutting away the superfluous. They often expose and remove unnecessary people or commitments from your life that were draining your energy. They shatter comforting illusions, forcing you to confront reality. Clarity is an expensive commodity in life. You rarely get it for free. Adversity, in its demanding way, is often one of the highest prices you pay for that invaluable clarity. Once you possess that clarity, your reactions become sharper, more precise, your priorities become cleaner, more aligned, and your life, overall, becomes more profoundly aligned with your true purpose. The inescapable truth is that hard times will visit everyone eventually. You do not get to avoid them entirely. They are an inherent, universal part of the human condition. But you do get to choose what they ultimately produce in you. You can allow adversity to shrink you, to diminish your spirit, to break your resolve, or to profoundly strengthen you, to expand your capacity. You can let it make you bitter and cynical, or make you wiser, more compassionate, and more resilient. You can let it break you apart entirely, or you can allow it to meticulously rebuild you, stronger, more whole, and more purposeful than before. Many of the strongest, most composed, and least reactive people you will ever encounter in life did not become that way because life was gentle, easy, or consistently fair. They became that way precisely because life was not. They faced the fire, and they emerged refined. The old version of you, the reactive self, took adversity personally and reacted emotionally, defensively. The new version, the sovereign self, sees adversity as raw material, material for growth, for learning, for strategic refinement, for building unshakable resilience. And that profound shift, that internal alchemy, is one of the clearest, most undeniable signs of becoming truly unrecognizable to the person you used to be. Chapter 15. Let silence and results announce who you are. There comes a point in your profound evolution, quiet yet powerful apex of self-mastery, where you no longer feel the compulsive need to argue, to endlessly explain, to justify your every move, to defend your character against every slight, or to desperately chase external recognition. You reach a level of internal clarity, of unshakable self-knowing, where your most vital energy subtly, yet fundamentally shifts its focus. It moves from the exhausting task of proving yourself to the empowering act of building something meaningful. It transitions from constant talking to consistent doing. It graduates from merely declaring your worth to undeniably demonstrating it through your actions and your presence. This chapter is about reaching that profound state of being where silence, strategically deployed, becomes your most potent language, and your tangible results become your most compelling introduction to the world. Silence, in a world relentlessly obsessed with noise, with constant chatter and endless self-promotion, is profoundly underrated. People feel an almost irresistible compulsion to post, to announce, to defend, and to explain themselves constantly. They comment on everything, respond to everyone, try to correct every misunderstanding, and feel compelled to fight every misrepresentation, however minor. But the truth, in its elegant simplicity, is this: when you constantly feel the need to defend your character with words, you inadvertently drain the very power, the very energy that could have been invested in building something so undeniable, so self-evident, that no defense would ever be necessary. Silence, when chosen intentionally, is not avoidance. It is profound discipline. It is an act of exquisite self-control. It is a resolute refusal to waste your precious energy on conversations that lead absolutely nowhere, that produce no meaningful outcome. When you possess an unshakable clarity about your mission, about your purpose, you cease needing to announce your every move. Announcing, by its nature, attracts attention. Attention, however, often brings with it unsolicited opinions. Opinions, in turn, generate noise, and noise, left unchecked, inevitably brings distraction. And distraction, insidious but pervasive, consistently pulls you away from the meaningful, fulfilling life you are meticulously trying to build. The most powerful individuals in any field, be it art, science, business, or leadership, rarely the ones who talk the loudest, who dominate every conversation. They are, almost universally, the ones who work the longest, who consistently put in the quiet, diligent effort. They move in silence, not because they are hiding something, but because they are profoundly focused on their craft, on their mission. They understand, deeply, that fleeting external attention is not the ultimate goal. Sustained, meaningful progress is when you consistently stop reacting to every casual comment or every piece of criticism. Something truly incredible begins to happen. People begin to wonder. They wonder what you're building, what silent strength you possess. They wonder why you remain so remarkably calm, so composed, when others are panicking. They wonder what quiet wisdom you possess that they do not. This subtle unpredictability creates a profound curiosity, and curiosity, when genuinely earned, often creates respect. The less you feel compelled to reveal through words, the more you undeniably reveal through your consistent, deliberate behavior. And behavior, let me assure you, is always infinitely more convincing and more trustworthy than mere conversation or explanation. This principle does not imply that you remain silent when something truly important needs to be said, when justice demands a voice, or when your values require clear articulation. It means you choose, with profound discernment, precisely where your voice is valuable, where it will have genuine impact. Your voice should not be wasted on endlessly explaining yourself to people who are, for whatever reason, committed to misunderstanding you. It should not be squandered on proving your inherent worth to individuals who have no genuine intention of respecting it. It should not be used in a futile attempt to persuade people who are not even truly listening, whose minds are already made up. Strategic silence is the deep understanding that not every battle requires you to draw your sword. Some battles, in fact, collapse entirely on their own, when you starve them of your reaction, when you deny them the energy they crave. Results, on the other hand, require no debate. They demand and no defense, no lengthy justification. Results speak a universal language, a language that cannot be twisted, distorted, or dismissed by someone else's fleeting opinion or subjective interpretation. When you accomplish something real, something tangible, something undeniably impactful, the very same people who once doubted you, who questioned your path, are compelled, often silently and grudgingly, to acknowledge it. The criticism often fades, its fuel exhausted, the gossip dies, its narratives proven false. The noise, that constant hum of external judgment, eventually disappears, rendered irrelevant by your demonstrated achievement. Results, more powerfully than any words, rewrite narratives. They decisively shut down arguments. They shift perception, not through persuasion, but through undeniable evidence, without you ever having to say a single word of defense. People may dismiss your initial goals, but they cannot dismiss your consistent growth. They may question your chosen direction, but they cannot question your ultimate destination once you undeniably arrive. They may judge your periods of silence, but they cannot, with any credibility, judge your progress when it becomes too obvious, too undeniable to ignore. When you consciously choose to let your actions or tangible results announce your identity, the world around you has no choice but to adjust how it sees you. This is why emotional maturity often feels like talking less, engaging less in unnecessary discourse. Not because you suddenly have less to say, less insight to share, but because you no longer possess that deep-seated, insecure need for external validation. You no longer need to win every petty argument. You no longer feel compelled to prove your intelligence, your kindness, your strength, or your noble intentions. You know with unshakable certainty who you are. And when you possess that profound self-knowledge, that quiet inner authority, external noise, external judgment loses its power, its insidious grip over you. There is another, deeper layer to this. Silence powerfully protects your emotional state. When you deliberately choose not to react immediately, you create an invaluable buffer, a protective space between yourself and the external situation, between stimulus and response. That buffer grants you the crucial space to think, to process, to discern, instead of merely reacting impulsively. It gives you the necessary space to choose dignity over raw impulse, to choose wisdom over fleeting emotion. It gives you the space to align your response with your deepest values and your highest self, instead of being driven solely by your immediate feelings. Silence is not empty. It is, in fact, full of profound intelligence, of strategic thought, of unwavering composure. Silence also undeniably makes your presence stronger, more impactful. When you speak less, you naturally observe more, you listen more intently, you understand more deeply. You begin to see nuances, patterns, and truths that other people consistently miss, because they are too preoccupied with talking, with projecting their own narratives. Presence, true, authentic presence, grows with a tranquil space where external noise disappears. Individuals who are profoundly comfortable in their own silence become powerful without needing to perform, without needing to constantly impress. They do not compete for external attention. They command it naturally, effortlessly, through their grounded composure. Now pair that profound silence with consistent, real, tangible results, and you become truly unstoppable. 1. The world, in its general nature, is often built for the loud, for those who clamor for attention, but it inevitably bends for the disciplined, for those who consistently produce. Loud people may gather immediate attention, a fleeting spotlight. Disciplined people, however, gather profound, lasting respect. Loud people may win the moment, the argument of the day. Disciplined people, with their quiet fortitude, win the future. Think for a moment of the old version of yourself, the version that reacted quickly, impulsively, that explained endlessly, that fought countless unnecessary battles, that tried to win every single argument regardless of the cost, that constantly sought to be understood and validated. Now, consider the version you are diligently becoming, the version that consciously saves its energy for truly meaningful things, the version that does not chase external approval, the version that works quietly, with profound dedication, the version that consistently chooses direction over distraction, purpose over noise, the version that consciously chooses to let its undeniable results introduce them, long before they ever need to speak a word. When you reach this elevated level of self-mastery, you no longer feel the burning need to declare, "I will prove them wrong." Instead, you cultivate a quiet, confident resolve that simply states, "They will see when they see." And that profound shift, that internal liberation, is true freedom. Freedom from external noise, freedom from emotional dependency, freedom from the tyranny of unnecessary reactions. The old you needed constant attention. The new you needs consistent progress. The old you needed validation. The new you needs profound mastery. The old you talked. The new you builds. And when you build consistently, silently, intentionally, your results will speak a language so clear, so powerful, so undeniable, that the world cannot possibly ignore it. That is the precise moment you become truly unrecognizable. Conclusion: transformation is neither loud nor instantaneous. It is not marked by a single dramatic moment of clarity, a sudden earth-shattering breakthrough that announces itself with fanfare. Instead, it unfolds quietly, subtly, through 1,000 small, deliberate decisions made consistently, day after day, week after week. It happens in the quiet choices you make about how you react to perceived slights, how you interpret challenging moments, how you manage the discomfort that life inevitably brings, how you strategically choose your battles, and how you diligently discipline your emotions, bringing them under the benevolent command of your higher self. This audiobook, Control Your Reactions, Become Unrecognizable, has not been about the pursuit of an impossible perfection. It has been about the profound journey of becoming strategic, intentional, and emotionally independent. Because once you master your reactions, once you gain sovereignty over your internal world, you fundamentally change the entire trajectory of your life. Take a moment to truly reflect on who you were before you began to understand and apply these principles. Perhaps you took things too personally, allowing external events to dictate your internal state. Maybe you reacted impulsively to every comment, every disagreement, every piece of criticism, feeling compelled to respond, to defend. Perhaps you explained yourself too much, believing that endless justification would lead to understanding. Maybe you chased external validation with an insatiable hunger, allowing others to define your worth. Perhaps you fought countless battles that, in hindsight, held no true significance, sacrificing your peace for a fleeting victory. Maybe you unconsciously handed control of your emotional state to the unpredictable world around you, becoming a passenger in your own life. There is no shame, no judgment in acknowledging that past self. Many people, indeed, live their entire lives that way, never realizing there is another path. But you, listener, are no longer that person, not because life magically became easier or more accommodating, but because you became harder to knock off center, harder to disturb, harder to derail. The real strength cultivated on this transformative journey has been learning to pause, to breathe, to reflect, instead of immediately lashing out. It has been learning to question your automatic assumptions, instead of blindly accepting them as truth. It has been learning to respond deliberately, strategically, instead of reacting impulsively. It has been learning to gracefully let things go, instead of allowing them to fester and break your spirit. Strength has been found in the profound understanding that silence can protect you and that your tangible results, consistently produced, can speak more eloquently and persuasively than any words you could utter. Strength has been in consciously choosing long-term power over the fleeting comfort of immediate emotional release. Strength has been in the liberating realization that not every external noise deserves your precious attention, and not every fleeting opinion merits your invaluable energy. Strength has been in learning to navigate the inevitable currents of conflict without inviting chaos into your core identity, without losing your inner peace. When you consistently control your reactions, you take back something incredibly precious, something that most people unwittingly lose without ever truly noticing: sovereignty over your emotional world. Without that sovereignty, you are carried by capricious circumstances, pulled by the egos and agendas of others, triggered by every external noise, and perpetually influenced by the changing environments around you. With sovereignty, with this profound internal mastery, you remain grounded, you remain intentional, you remain composed, an unshakable force. Life does not miraculously stop being difficult. People do not suddenly become perfectly predictable. Challenges do not disappear entirely. But your response, your internal state, becomes undeniably stronger, more resilient, and more powerful than any external situation. And once that profound shift happens, once you gain that unassailable inner strength, life, in subtle yet undeniable ways, begins to bend in your favor. Now, imagine what happens when this deliberate way of living compounds over time. A single day of conscious restraint might feel small, almost insignificant in its individual impact. A single moment of unwavering composure might seem like a minor victory, but months of consistent composure, of deliberate response, turn into a powerful, unshakable reputation. Years of such composure, of emotional discipline, transform into the very essence of your identity, and that solidified identity, that deep internal character, fundamentally shapes your destiny. There is a profound reason why the central theme, the very title of this audiobook, speaks of becoming unrecognizable, because true, deep evolution is not merely when others notice a superficial change in you. It is when you look back at your former self, at the person who was once reactive, easily swayed, and perpetually anxious, and you genuinely, profoundly, barely recognize them. Becoming unrecognizable is not about arrogance, nor about cultivating a sense of superiority over others. It is, at its core, about outgrowing the old patterns, the old habits, the old limitations that once controlled you, that held you captive. It is about meticulously building a version of yourself that your past self, the reactive, struggling self, would look upon with immense admiration and a sense of awe. A version of yourself that does not break under pressure, that does not crumble under criticism, that does not collapse under misunderstanding, and that does not lose its unwavering direction under provocation. A version of yourself who is inherently trusted, deeply respected, emotionally stable, profoundly disciplined, and demonstrably capable of leading both themselves and, when called upon, their environment. If there is one message, one enduring truth, to take with you from this journey, it is this: your reactions are not small, they are not trivial, fleeting emotional impulses. They are, in fact, the very architecture of your future, the foundational building blocks of your character. Every reaction is a choice, and every single choice is a thread, a powerful, determining thread that meticulously weaves the tapestry of your character, shapes the quality of your relationships, influences the flow of your opportunities, and ultimately dictates your destiny. Control your reactions, and you will control far, far more than you currently realize. This journey of self-mastery does not end here with the final words of this audiobook. It continues every single day, in countless conversations, in moments of conflict, in unexpected challenges, in periods of profound silence, in the face of uncertainty, and in the quiet moments of success. Every day, you will be presented with a fresh chance to choose reaction or response, impulsive comfort or strategic power. Choose wisely, choose deliberately. Choose the highest version of yourself that you are actively, powerfully becoming, and with time, the old you will gracefully fade, not forgotten entirely, but profoundly surpassed. And the world will eventually meet a person who did not demand recognition, who did not beg for approval, and who did not need to announce their own profound transformation. A person whose unwavering composure, strategic restraint, and undeniable results introduced them, eloquently and powerfully, long before they ever spoke a single word. That, my friends, is how you become truly unrecognizable.